Atlanta News First. Sound cut out there. I'll start all over again. Thank you so much for joining us back here at Atlanta News First Plus. We have been following severe weather all morning since 4:30 a.m. this morning on our newscast, carrying you all the way through today, where we're continuing to see impacts across Georgia. I want to take you straight out to this power outage map that we're seeing out of North Georgia. This is showing you just the thousands of people that are still experiencing a lack of power. Crews aware and responding to these areas, but they continue to be without power. We're seeing rolling blackouts at this time. Those are the measures that are being taken as wind continues to impact several communities. We saw power outages in the metro area, but also in North Georgia, where they're seeing lower temperatures. This map particularly showing you just how many people have been impacted. Earlier, we got a statement from Georgia Power basically saying they have already responded to and restored power to 120,000 customers, 120,000 customers, and they're continuing to respond around the clock. One of the measures Georgia Power actually said they've taken is that they've made sure that their power generation plants are working around the clock to make sure that they are able to meet the increased demand for energy during these times of low temperatures. But out in North Georgia, if you take a look, that is where that is being felt probably the most. Just the amount of people that is impacted is in the thousands, and it is growing and altering minute by minute. So we are continuing to follow that as well. I believe we are about to be joined here by our reporter, meteorologist, Cutter Martin. But before we get you out to the roads, let's talk a little bit more about the impacts. The big word and advice from officials: if you find yourself without power, if you are faced with the cold and you are no longer able to find a source of heat within your house, maybe consider finding a warming center. Take this time to charge up your batteries and locate a warming center that you can go to in the event that you experience a power outage, or if your home is no longer a safe place for you to seek that heat. There's a graphic I put up there for you, a winter weather tip. Again, charge your devices right now, make sure everything's at full battery, everything that you'll need in the event that you do need to locate warmth elsewhere. We have a full list of warming centers around Georgia on our website, Atlanta News First. Just a long list of places that you can find. You might want to locate the one closest to your area because you want to minimize the time that you are on the road as well. All right, taking you out to a live look at our across the country, really. This is a picture for you, seeing some of the snow on the ground, showing you this area right here. This is Naperville, Illinois. You can see what appears to be a shopping mall, just some of that snow and ice sticking to the ground, drivers moving through carefully. That is a look more closer of Illinois, but coming back to Atlanta, taking a look at what we're facing here in Georgia. We want to get you out to our meteorologist, Cutter Martin, who has been out all morning long, covering, giving us that ground perspective, covering what it looks like outside. Cutter, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, and gotta be honest, if it wasn't for the temperature, it'd be a gorgeous day. Nothing but sunshine out here right now, but it is bitterly cold outside.
That is what I have heard time and time again. It is so cold that your fingers, if they're not covered up, you're really feeling the effects there.
And for me, remember, it's going to get cold tonight, down to single digits, lower teens. In order for it to get that cold, the air has to be very dry, right? Our dew points are so low. My lips are as chapped as they've ever been. My skin is extremely dry. So something that we haven't touched on, for those that do have to be outside, make sure you're staying hydrated. And in addition to that, make sure you're putting on lotion, chapstick, because you're going to have the worst windburn you probably ever had if you've been outside for an extended period of time.
And as you've been outside all morning long and feeling some of those effects, can you talk a little bit about what you've been seeing and covering throughout today? I know you've been at a different couple spots. You've been covering our roads, covering some water main breaks. Walk us through everything.
Yeah, I would say in general, this is not the worst case as far as weekend weather, Christmas weekend is concerned. This is certainly impactful, certainly dangerous if you're not prepared and you're outside for an extended period of time. But I think people's impacts are going to be determined based on what they do. If you're a firefighter, police officer, EMT, if you work for a city crew, like at the issue that we are finding right here, at this water main break, it's going to be a pretty miserable weekend for you. We're talking abnormally cold weather impacting North Georgia, Metro Atlanta, and this water main not breaking or leaking necessarily due to cold weather. I happen to live in the neighborhood, and this has been leaking for some time, but because it is so cold, the water that is leaking is now starting to freeze. I mean, this goes all the way down Ponce. We're on the westbound side between Monroe over there, closer to Midtown proper, going back towards Old Fourth Ward. That's going to be Glen Iris and Ponce City Market. It looks like normal water, and where it's flowing, where it's deeper, it is still normal water, liquid water, nothing that's icy. But you get out there and you see that slush right at the first lane lines. That is ice. And we have thick ice over against the pavement there, marked by cones. And this water and ice actually goes all the way down to the Whole Foods, if you're familiar with the area, and to the belt line, the overpass, the belt line going over Ponce de Leon Avenue Northeast there, back towards Old Fourth Ward and Ponce City Market. So we were made aware of this as we kind of drove up on it. We happened to run into a business owner here on this stretch, and they said that they would call the city of Atlanta 311. They did. Just so happens very quickly a city worker came out. They said they have declared this an emergency. That means they are going to send a whole crew, one of the folks that would probably consider this weekend pretty miserable, out here in the elements to dig. They may have to go feet down, fix the main, at least stop the water from leaking, and then address any ice that may be forming. And I think if they don't get it done this afternoon, big trouble this evening, tonight. No sunshine to help. I know temperatures are below freezing, but even with temperatures as cold as they are, the sun will help melt ice just a little bit. But without its favor this evening, overnight, tonight, we're looking at a big icy mess along this right stretch, trying to get into some of these businesses on westbound Ponce de Leon Avenue Northeast. And even in the middle of the day, flowing water, temperatures in the teens to near 20, we do have some ice forming. So if you're not one of those folks, long story short, it's a bitterly cold weekend. It's a memorably cold Christmas weekend, but it's also one that you can just stay indoors, stay warm if you can, and enjoy, holiday cooking, holiday movies with the family.
Yeah, certainly a time to stay inside. I had a few people throughout our live stream between the 10 and 12 o'clock hour asking about travel. They're trying to change their plans around this weather. Is there a good day to go if they're just really trying to make a trip in the safest way possible?
Well, there isn't really much of a travel issue. All North Georgia roadways are pretty fine. We did not come across any big trouble spots. The main lanes are dry unless you're with an issue like this. Nothing falling from the sky, nothing really on the roads. The air is just so dry. That wind was howling this morning. I know it rained last night. We had some flurries, very light snow this morning, but nothing was really sticking, and the air was so dry, a lot evaporated before temperatures dropped below freezing. So we're not looking at big travel issues, but if you just don't like driving in cold weather, or you don't want to have to go to and from the car in cold weather, you're going to have to wait till after Christmas. We're not going to start warming back up till the 26th. But if you do have to go, roadways, at least in North Georgia into North Alabama, upstate of South Carolina, aside from the peaks of the mountains, pretty decent. So it's just up to you. If you're up for it with the cold, if your car is in good working condition, if your battery's working, if your tires are pumped up. Those were some issues that people ran into this morning with their cars. Then it's just up to you. If you don't like driving in the cold, it's okay. But we've been driving around all morning and have run into no issues aside from the sporadic rogue problem like this, which is kind of few and far between. It's a big issue in these couple of lanes and on this stretch of road, but elsewhere, of course, not causing any problems.
And I drive on that road behind you pretty frequently, and I'm noticing the drivers are a little more cautious. You were in our road tracker earlier.
Yeah.
Have you seen kind of people being a little more slow than they normally are? I know we were telling drivers, hey, just make sure you're watching for possible ice and other conditions. I mean,
I think people are watching, but the roads are dry. It's dry. There's really not much ice. There could be a spot or two in maybe some of the neighborhoods with more trees and more shade, and the moisture just isn't evaporating. It's possible, but I haven't noticed. People, it's speed limit travel. People are going about normal. If you come up on an issue like this, people are slowing down. But this is not necessarily the norm, but it is an issue that we could see more and more of as we go deeper into this cold blast. But I think driving-wise, it's not a bad day. It's just miserably cold out here, and if you're unprotected and outside for too long, it is dangerously cold out here.
That's good news. You were mentioning earlier some of the effects of the cold that you were feeling yourself from being out there. I wanted to talk a little about what we were mentioning throughout this week, frostbite, hypothermia. What are some of the signs that people should look out for? Is there a certain amount of time spent outside that could lead to that?
They say with wind chills as cold as they are, especially this evening and overnight tonight, 30 minutes or less, you could start having some issues. I'm wearing many, many layers and I'm okay. It's not comfortable, but as soon as I take my gloves off, 5 minutes and I'm already in pain. So the big deal here is to just listen to your body. And if you start to feel uncomfortable, it's time to go inside. Don't let yourself get to that hypothermic state. If you're feeling uncomfortable, that's your body saying, whoa, these are not ideal conditions. Let's go inside and get to a warmer environment, one that's more suitable for human living, right? So just pay attention to how you're feeling. Try not to be outside for an extended period of time. If you have maybe the last minute roast or you forgot some ingredients, if stores are open in your neighborhood, go. But just make sure that you're bundled up, you're wearing all the layers, and don't just sit outside, for an extended period of time. It's not comfortable to be outside by any means, but the danger is really just limited to those that are unprepared. They may not have the ability to be prepared. We can think about our folks that are on the streets or that may be without a home this holiday season. It's those people that are at greatest risk, as well as those with certain health conditions, the elderly. They need to be watched, especially if their homes are not heated properly. But in general, if you have all the layers, you're pretty good to go. And I think most people have the opportunity because it is a holiday weekend. A lot of folks had today off. They're probably staying inside anyway. So in reality, it's just to listen and watch how you feel. And if you start to feel uncomfortable, time to go inside. A general time span would be about 30 minutes, but it's different for every situation, and it's going to be different for every person.
Yeah, certainly. Thank you so much, Cutter. I know from being out in the field, your perspective, your meteorological perspective is so important to this as we continue to cover this, but I'll let you get back to some warmth right now.
Of course, and you have a good one, and remember, if you have plans you have to do, maybe you are one of those folks we were just talking about that may have forgot ingredients to go to the grocery store. Even though we're out of newscasting, we're still live on Atlanta News First Plus. We're going to be breaking in with the forecast information there. Also, the First Alert weather app and AtlantaNewsFirst.com. Current conditions, hour-by-hour forecast, especially that wind chill. Keep an eye on that number as we go deeper into the evening and tonight, Maria.
Thanks so much, Cutter. All right, I want to get you back to the power outages that we are seeing. Taking you back out to this map here, clearly changing by the minute. You can see that from this map alone, from what I showed you right before we were able to touch base with Cutter, to what you're seeing now, still thousands affected by power outages, especially in the North Georgia area, but that number is significantly decreasing minute by minute as crews respond and prepare to address these concerns. We've heard from Georgia Power saying they have smart systems in place to locate and track these power outages before they're manually reported, and that has helped them carve down time and get power back to people because power equals warmth, and right now that is what is needed. Let's take a look at what travel is looking like. I'm going to get you out to our FlightAware website where we're seeing a live map of Hartsfield, Jackson, Atlanta International Airport, but we also have our Atlanta News First team at ATL. We've been there all morning long, and we actually have our reporter Tori Cooper out there right now. Tori, can you hear me all right?
I absolutely can.
All right, so I'm seeing a line behind you. We're speaking with ATL spokesperson Andy Gobeil earlier, and he was saying that it really hasn't been an issue all day as far as managing those travel lines. What are you seeing?
Well, there's been a lot of changes out here, Maria. I've been out here since about 10 a.m. We're now heading into 1 p.m. and already just a different feel out here to really give you a perspective. This was smooth sailing about 20 minutes ago, and even about an hour ago, still very much smooth sailing. And now take a look at it. I'm going to make sure we can push in just to give you a look. Now, people on this line are getting pretty frustrated. I did go over there and talk to some of them. They said, look, this line is just too long. But when I speak to the TSA employees and I ask them about the travel time or the wait time, they said that it's only 25 minutes. But as you can imagine, when you have somewhere to be, you have a gate and a boarding time, 20 minutes can feel like forever out here. And just to give you a perspective, and don't forget, you know, a lot of us, I think we get caught up in the whole, hey, I already have my boarding pass on my phone. Hey, I've already paid for my bag. I'm going to be good. But we have frigid temperatures, Maria, and as you know, that really makes it harder for ground crews to operate as they usually do. So when one flight gets delayed, that trickle-down effect certainly happens. I know that you were showing our app on Atlanta News First and showing the flight aware details, and it shows that I've been keeping a very close eye on that aspect, and just within the last 2 hours, delays and cancellations have changed significantly. It went from 152 delays, then I checked in an hour later, then it was 362 delays, then after that it was 414 delays. 414 delays is the latest information, and right now there are 123 cancellations. Now, I did have a chance to speak with some travelers. I've been hearing a lot of people talk about the fact that their flight got canceled. They are going to Jamaica. There's been a vast array of different stories out here, but there's a woman right now standing in line, and she had her flight canceled while I was standing behind her, and she was on the phone with her family, and she immediately had to tell them, look, my flight just got canceled. It's the cold weather, and now I'm going to be on standby, so she's going to really make a push for that. I also just spoke with a woman. She had plans to go to Santa Barbara, my home state of California, and her connecting flight in Denver, she was going to miss it. So her and her husband had to make different plans, and they left the airport, and now they're going to have to come back because, again, that system that was really making its way over the Rockies is now in the Northeast, but that is still going to have some impacts because all of the flights are going to be continuously backed up throughout the day, and that's what we're seeing.
And Tori, I saw on our Facebook and YouTube comments, someone was saying that they're worried about the turbulence and just imagining what those travelers might be concerned about when you talk about dealing with weather and flying in weather. Have you gotten any concerns or thoughts from some of those travelers as they're standing in line about their flights?
Absolutely. When I was having a chance to speak with some of these travelers, many of them are really just focused on making their flight right now. I think that most people who are taking to the skies this time of year are pretty much just eye on the prize, right? Point A to point B. So far, no one I've spoke to has really had that sentiment. People aren't really worried about the turbulence, but they are worried about the part about, you know, these icy, slick runways. I know that that is a concern for some of the people I've talked to, but overall, people are just really concerned about making their flight and the connecting flight. So they've really been trying to keep an eye on that. Some people have left 6 hours ahead of time to get here, and they still missed their flight. It was still canceled. So that's why it's so important right now to be on our app, because that's really going to be the best place in real time. Click on that link and you'll be able to see where your flight's at in terms of delays because of the frigid temperatures. Because as you know, things are also changing out here. Something that was very different that I want to point out to our viewers, then again, it shows how the frigid temperatures touch every part of the airport. Outside, you're used to seeing the baggage claim concierge that help you with your bag. They give you your bag tag really quick and your boarding pass. That's not the case right now. It's a ghost town on the curbside because they had to bring all of those workers in because it is so cold. So that's not an extra avenue for travelers that you see behind me to use to drop off their bags and head to their gate and get in this line maybe a little bit quicker. So it's really already slowing things down out here, and it's causing some problems. Now, from 1 to 5 is when those workers are supposed to return back outside, but that could also change because they said, hey, if the temperatures continue to drop, we're not going to let them go out there. And that's the same thing. We have people on the runways, you know, going like this, you know, helping our planes land and take off. Those are also people that we really have to keep in mind right now because the temperatures are very dangerous.
Yeah, very dangerous is the correct word to use. And I know you yourself are watching this closely because you're flying out, I believe, to California. So I know this is something
Yes.
that's top of mind for you as well.
Yes, so you know, sometimes you can add yourself into the story occasionally. And yeah, actually, I did check my bag already. So lucky for me, I have a great Atlanta News First family, including you, Miss Maria. And so just to give you a perspective, when I was in the line, it was about a 25-minute wait. I had already downloaded my boarding pass and prepaid for my bag, and I have TSA pre-check. I still had to wait about 25 minutes just to get my bag through. I really did that process so I could see if I was in that line and then in this line what it would be like. And so that's about 40 minutes of time before you even get to take off your shoes. And I have also been keeping a track on my flight using our Atlanta News First app, and it's so easy because we have that article up. You just scroll right where it says check on flights and cancellations, and I've been just making sure it's still on time because I am scheduled to leave around 10 p.m. and I am going back to California, back to Redondo Beach, where I'm finally going to see my family after over a year, so I'm really excited. But that system has already mostly moved over the Rockies and is up in the northeast part of the country, so hopefully I won't have to worry about the delays because most of the major part of the storm or the cold weather has really made its way already over to our side of the country. So hopefully, I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
As a traveler yourself, you know, with this weather, navigating through it, what are your pro tips and your top things to avoid to our fellow travelers who might be making it out tonight with you?
So I'm all about hurry up and then wait, you know, because there's that thing like, oh, I have time, but this is such a different time right now because we haven't seen cold temperatures like this, Maria, since 2014. This is historic what we're reporting on right now and being able to live through. And when you go outside, it's different. It's just different just to get here and everything that's taking place behind the scenes. You may see smooth sailing going to the airport and clear skies, but as soon as you get here, everything we've been talking about is really coming to a head. So get out, err on the side of caution. Make sure you download your boarding pass and your pay for your bags, anything that's going to save you some time so you can move through it quickly. And then once you get here, try to have a smaller carry-on if you can so that you know you can move through that process quickly and make sure you know your gate. And again, just keep an eye on our app because that's really going to be the best tool for you. And if you can pack light and not bring a bag, you know, I can't do that because I have a lot of gifts in my bag this time around, but that's another pro tip that I would say. If you can travel light, bring maybe a smaller bag that can fit in the overhead or that they can check for you when you're like already boarding. That's another option. So those are kind of my pro tips. And if you don't already have TSA pre-check, maybe steal a coupon from Clear here. They can also help you out.
Well, I'll be looking forward to your Instagram photos of warm California. I hope you have a safe flight. Thanks so much for talking to us.
Thank you so much, Maria. And I just want to let all of our viewers know that Maria has really pioneered this entire space of ANF Plus, and she is continuing to grow this audience and is doing a spectacular job. And she does this all on the fly. She's looking at screens everywhere. She is able to really see in real time what's taking place whenever we cover a first alert weather day. She is really going to be one of the main go-to sources for you. So I continue to really encourage all of our viewers to tune in to ANF Plus and have our app because Maria is going to really continue to drive this platform for us.
You're really trying to make me cry on here. Thank you so much.
No.
Happy holidays to you. Safe travels again. Make sure you get to your destination safely.
All right. All right.
All right. Yeah, as Tori was saying, this is a place where we are bringing you live results. As soon as we hear about any updates regarding power outages, rolling blackouts, downed trees, we are bringing you that information live on here. So all of these monitors below me, it is where I see several different websites, graphics, information that is getting updated, live maps that I'm looking at. We are monitoring everything as well as the rest of the Atlanta News First team to try to get you information on your area and anything that might be impacting you. I want to bring you out to this live look here. This is out of Milwaukee, taking a look at not so many travelers on the road, but look at those conditions. It is cold. You don't have to be in that climate to tell. You can see some of that snow sticking to the ground, blowing snow, causing a lot of problems we've heard for motorists. That is all from an Arctic cold front that has made its way through Illinois, Kentucky, Missouri, and Indiana. That actually, that cold front made its way Thursday now settling in, causing some issues for people really across the state, especially in the Midwest. But National Weather Service is warning that rain is going to continue turning into snow, up to 4 inches of snow in those areas, and wind gusts of 35 to 40 miles per hour in the Quad State area. So Illinois, Kentucky, Missouri, and Indiana really feeling some impacts. This again is a live picture for you out of Milwaukee, just showing you the conditions there. And take a look at South Illinois, that as well.
Yeah.
You can see just some of those impacts. That is somebody driving through this. Honestly, if it were me, I would pull over, guys. I am a nervous driver. These drivers are braving the elements and trying to make it through carefully, cautiously, but you can barely see the car in front of you, and that is a real reality, especially for those states that are seeing blizzards and heavy snow impacts. You heard from our meteorologist, Cutter Martin. He said, not necessarily the case here. In Atlanta, roads seem to be dry. It seems to be all right to be driving on those, but you still want to make sure you're monitoring bridges, overpasses, some areas that could still have remnants of ice. But this is South Illinois you're looking at. I'm going to show you more pictures that we're getting around our sister stations, around the country, especially those areas feeling blizzard-like conditions and really dealing with the fallout of an ongoing blizzard. Good time to really show you what it looks like around the country. And here later on today, we're actually going to be talking with our sister station at KTTC, connecting with their chief meteorologist in Rochester, Minnesota. Nick Jansen's going to be joining us to give you a really run through of what it looks like across the country, what Minnesota is experiencing. But take a look at that. This Arctic cold front, not something you want to be messing with. Giving you a live shot back to Milwaukee as several states continue to deal with the impacts of this. And Atlanta, no exception. I know we've been talking to you about these updates, but we're seeing the effects of wind chills especially, and high winds that are going at 35 to 50 miles per hour, downed trees, power outages, causing crews to conduct rolling blackouts so that they can get services up and running and installing new poles. You'd heard from East Point Power Department saying that they had to shut off power for 30 to 45 minutes just to install a pole and make sure that they can reconnect services and get a stronger energy out to the public. Because when you have energy and you have power, you have heat, and that is what is needed at this time. Now, I do believe at this time we are going to be going into a detailed forecast for you, really explaining what the conditions are looking like. I'm going to bring on Chief Meteorologist Jennifer Valdez here in a moment to join me. She'll be walking you through exactly what the conditions are, and if you have any questions, drop them down below at this time, whether they're travel related, whether you want to know more about your community. She will be able to answer those for you here over the next half hour that she's with us, answering those Q&As and taking you through more of what you need to know about the impacts Atlanta is facing and how this Arctic cold front is moving through and affecting our area. Ready? All right, and I do have our Chief Meteorologist, Jennifer Valdez, here with us. You've been hard at work, really, all day, all week, I should say, preparing Atlanta, but also explaining exactly why this is happening. I believe over the next 30 minutes, you'll be able to kind of connect with some of our viewers. They've asked some questions about travel. They've also asked some questions about how they should navigate these power outages. So we'll be able to give a full explanation of how this weather is impacting different communities.
Yeah, definitely. definitely, and just very cold out there, dangerously cold. That's really the biggest impact. Still windy outside, although not as windy as it was overnight. I don't know if you woke up in the middle of the night. My power was flickering at 3 a.m. Woke up to 2 lawn chairs in the pool. So yes, it was very windy overnight. Should we start with graphics and then we'll go through questions? Do we want to do that? So I want to give everyone kind of an overview of where we are right now. So it is 21 right now in Atlanta. It stings just even thinking about it. Most of you hopefully are indoors, as you should be. 12 in Blairsville, 13 in Canton. And compared to where we were yesterday, and I'm trying to advance, should I have brought my clicker out here?
Yes.
Oh. Can you run and get my clicker in the studio for me? So Maria's going to run in and get my clicker. The joys of live television, right? But yeah, temperatures are significantly colder than they were this time yesterday. And you look at the temperature change between now and yesterday, and it's like a totally different season. We were looking back to see when we started first alerting you about this cold weather. And it was early December. We've been talking about this for weeks, and that is all about our First Alert brand, is that as soon as we know, you'll know, and as soon as we know that there's gonna be impactful weather, we're gonna let you know about impactful. Thank you, Maria, I appreciate that. We'll let you know. So we've been letting you know about this since early December, which you look at the date now, it's almost Christmas. That's almost 3 weeks ago. We've been talking about this cold blast of Arctic air that's going to move in. Look at the temperature change within the last 24 hours. This is why everyone gets sick this time of year. 22-degree difference between right now and this time yesterday. 32-degree difference in LHA, almost 40-degree difference in Blairsville between where we are right now and where we were this time yesterday. Now the winds, the temperatures themselves are already frigid, but then you have strong gusty winds on top of that. 22-mile-an-hour sustained winds right now in Atlanta, 20-mile-an-hour sustained winds in Gainesville. These are out of the northwest, so they're bringing that cold Canadian air, really dry air. If you step outside and you kind of want to see what it feels like, you'll notice it's very dry outside. You'll need chapstick and lotion. Best thing though is make sure that you are covering everything. You don't want any exposed skin in this kind of weather, especially since we're not really used to it here in the South, in Georgia. This is not normal for us. So certainly your body's not going to be acclimated not only to these temperatures, but to this kind of wind and temperatures. Because it is so windy, a wind advisory in effect. This is through 10 o'clock tonight. We'll see winds of 15 to 25 miles an hour, gusts up to 40 miles an hour. That high wind warning no longer in effect for the North Georgia mountains, but very windy outside and breezy. So that's going to make it feel even colder than those temperatures actually are. So very cold out there. Wind gusts as we head through the afternoon. I want to take you hour by hour because we're still seeing gusts up to about 30 miles an hour right now, and then we'll see similar conditions through about 5 o'clock. Then after 5, after sunset, the winds will die down a bit. But I do want to point out that although the winds will diminish, it's still pretty breezy out there. We're still going to see wind gusts of 20 to 25 miles an hour, even as we head into the evening and overnight. And then as you wake up tomorrow, temperatures will actually be colder than they were this morning. So yes, the winds won't be as strong, but the temperatures will be colder. So we're going to be talking about very cold, feels like temperatures. In fact, here's a look at feels like temperatures here as we head through the day and into tomorrow. Very cold, even by lunchtime tomorrow, only feeling like the single digits at 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. So we are tracking the potential of dangerous wind chills, especially northern metro Atlanta through the North Georgia mountains, Banks County, Hall County, Forsyth County, into Dawson and Pickens County, Cherokee County. You are under a wind chill warning. This is where we will see wind chill temperatures as cold as 20 degrees below zero. Areas in blue, that's Fulton County, Gwinnett County, DeKalb County, Cobb County, Paulding County, Polk County, and points south, including Clark and Oconee County. It's going to feel about 5 degrees below zero. Either way, it will be incredibly cold, so you will need to bundle up. So we talk about wind chill. We've been talking about it all week, and we talk about that's how it feels on your skin. But we're going to talk a little more about wind chill. We can give you a little bit more in-depth information here via this avenue as opposed to on television. So wind chill, basically our bodies, normally we lose heat through convection. When we have strong winds, it interferes with that. So on a day with no winds, with little to no wind, then our body stays warm. Heat remains to help us stay warmer. So, for example, on a 20-degree day, feels like 20 degrees, not a big impact. But then you have a windy day, and when it's windy, the moving air breaks up that insulating warm layer. So that wind is making you feel even colder. So on the left, you have a 20-degree day with no winds. It feels like 20. On the right, a 20-degree day with 20-mile-an-hour winds feels much colder. Basically, it speeds up your heat loss and it makes it feel even colder on your skin. So on a 20-degree day with 20-mile-an-hour winds, it feels like 4 degrees. Now, our weather is even colder than that. We're talking about temperatures in the teens and single digits with wind gusts up to 40 miles an hour. So you can imagine how much colder it's going to feel. So with temperatures like these, we're talking about hypothermia and frostbite. Common terms we don't use here in North Georgia. I know we use it a lot in the Midwest, in Canada, and places that are a lot colder than we are, but you know, you're not going to hear me in a forecast talking about hypothermia that often, but we are now because it's certainly a possibility. And the temperatures we have forecasted and what we're seeing right now, we can see signs of hypothermia in 30 minutes or less for some areas, especially in the mountains. So 30 minutes and signs of hypothermia. This is what you need to look for. And, you know, your kids are going to want to play outside. They're going to want to ride their bikes. They're going to want to check out the ice. This morning, my kids were finding potholes filled with ice and filling cups of water and watching it turn to ice. So I get it, but you want to know these warning signs: confusion, shivering, difficulty speaking, sleepiness, stiff muscles. Those are all signs of hypothermia. So especially with Christmas coming up, I know maybe Santa's going to bring some bikes or some Power Wheels, some tricycles, and they're probably going to be wanting to check those things outdoors. That's fine. Just make sure they're bundled up, no exposed skin, and make sure you are aware of these warning signs of possible hypothermia. So here's what you need to know for the weekend. A first alert tomorrow. So not a first alert weather day. It's not going to be as big of an impact, but still a first alert because it will be windy and frigid. It's actually going to be even colder tomorrow morning than it was this morning. And then you factor in those winds, it's going to feel like anywhere between 10 degrees below zero to 15 degrees. So very cold on Saturday. Lots of sunshine. It will be beautiful, but it will be windy and cold. On Sunday, that's when we will finally warm up above freezing. So we talk about a hard freeze. That is, we are now below freezing. It happened this morning, and now we are going to stay below freezing the rest of today, all day Saturday through Sunday morning. We're not even going to see temperatures above freezing until Sunday afternoon. And even then, we're only going to see temperatures above freezing for a couple of hours. And not everyone's going to get above freezing. This is the forecast high for Atlanta. But if you're in Cherokee County, if you are in northern Gwinnett County, if you're in Sugar Hill, if you are in Dawsonville, chances are you're not going to see temperatures above freezing until Monday. So pipes are going to be an issue the rest of the weekend. Don't think that if your pipes don't burst today, you're in the clear. Can still happen tonight, can still happen tomorrow, can still happen Sunday. So this is something we'll be watching for the entire weekend as those temperatures stay below freezing for the next couple of days. Here's a look at your Christmas Day forecast. Remember, on Christmas, forecasting temperatures to get above freezing just barely, but at least it should happen, at least in the metro. It will be a very cold start to the morning. So Santa Claus, thankfully, living in the North Pole, he'll be used to it. 19 degrees at 9 a.m., freezing at 2 o'clock. So I do think we'll get to or just above freezing by the early afternoon, and then those temperatures dropping on Sunday night. It will be a cold Christmas, a good Christmas to stay inside, maybe change your plans of what you were going to make. I know personally, we were originally talking about steaks or something on the green egg or something on the grill. We canceled those plans, too cold for that. So turkey it is in the oven, or something you can make inside because it's going to be cold. You're not going to want to be outside cooking or especially spending extended periods of time outdoors. So certainly something to plan for, especially if you have family coming into town or you're heading over to family's house or grandma's house. Just keep in mind it will stay cold even on Sunday. It's not just today. We will stay cold through the entire weekend. Here's a look at that 7-day forecast. Temperatures in the 20s for today and tomorrow, low 30s on Sunday. And then we gradually warm up next week. So it is going to feel much better by the middle of the week. Wednesday, nice afternoon, 52 on Thursday, finally warmer, 57 degrees. And I do want to show you that Next week, especially by the end of the week, as you know, it is New Year's Eve. There's a big football game. There's a lot happening. And things could be wet, could see some rain. It's still very early out. We're talking about, 8-9 days out. It could be a little bit rainy, but it will be warmer. That is the good news. In fact, your temperature outlook for the end of December through New Year's Day, we're going to see a New Year's warm up, not only here in Georgia, but across much of the country. This is good news. We're going to see unseasonably warm weather. In fact, we could see temperatures in the 60s as we head into New Year. So it is going to feel so much better than what we are seeing right now. We like to talk about the light at the end of the tunnel. So that is the good news. Something I want to briefly talk about too is that the roads, even though temperatures are below freezing, there is sunshine out there. That is helping dry the roads, and it is windy. That is helping dry the roads as well. So that is going to facilitate improving the conditions, and the roads are actually looking very good, especially the interstates that were treated. But even though we are below freezing, I do expect any remaining ice to be gone here fairly quickly. So certainly I don't expect any travel issues tomorrow unless it's from a water main break or a sprinkler system or something like that that is going to generate additional water on pavement or on the roads. I do think that sunshine and the winds are really going to help the road. So if you're wondering if you want to travel and you want to go out of town and you want to go somewhere for Christmas, the roads are improving, and I think by tomorrow they will be fine for any travels that you have planned. So I'm going to go back in reverse here, and we're going to show you. So bear with me. I want to go back to current temperatures. So we're going to go back through all these amazing graphics we just looked at. There's the 24-hour change, and there we go. Current temperatures right now. 12 in Blairsville, 13 in Dalton. These temperatures way below what we normally see this time of year. So it is a little bit of a shock to the system. Let me know what you're planning on doing today. Are you going to watch Christmas movies? Chili? I think chili sounds really good right now. Soup? All these things sound nice. Staying in PJs all day. All really good ideas, certainly. I want to show you that sunshine. We talked about the sunshine. Here's how it looks at the airport. This is Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. It was very busy. It probably still is. Lots of cancellations yesterday because of this massive system, but looking so much better right now at Hartsfield-Jackson International. And there's the sunshine we were talking about, that yes, even though temperatures are below freezing, things are improving. So they will continue to improve here as far as drying the pavement and making the roads a little safer for you as you head out. So it is a first alert weather day. How do we find out if we have questions, Maria? Do we know, is there a way? Let's see.
I was just about to join
Look at
you.
that, so you know.
Perfect. So I was looking through a few
Okay,
different
perfect.
questions. One I saw actually earlier that you might be able to address.
Yes.
People were asking, it's not raining in my area. Why am I seeing a power outage?
The winds, so that is the thing. So we have so many beautiful trees. We're very lucky. The city in a forest, we talk about it all the time. We have a lot of slopey areas as well. So weak, dead, dying trees, there are a lot of them. Unfortunately, a lot of times people don't take care of dead, dying trees because it's very expensive to remove a tree, even if it needs to come down. So we had very strong winds overnight, so that caused some trees to come down. And I think we could still see some additional trees coming down, especially weak, dead, dying trees. A perfectly healthy tree is not going to come down with 40-mile-an-hour winds. But when you have soaked soil, and then you have a weak tree, a dying tree, you are going to see some problems with them coming down. So yes, even without the rain, it's the winds. That's what's knocking them down. That's what's causing the power outages. And the winds have come down a little bit, but the bucket trucks have a hard time going up in strong winds. It's dangerous for the workers, and also it's a holiday. So I think they're all working overtime, but it's still a holiday. So I think that's going to impact things as well. But from what I've seen personally, I had a big power outage where I live overnight. My power actually flickered on and off. So I was scared, but I had kept my power on overnight. But all that power came back on. So I do feel like crews are working diligently to get it back on. But
yeah, and
it's the
we've been
winds.
following the power outage maps. Every minute that I check in, it seems to go down. Another one will pop up and it goes down. So they are responding to these. Georgia Power even saying, you know, they are working around the clock. Really over the past 12 hours, they've been responding nonstop to these power outages. Another question I did see, someone wanted to ask, you know, I want to let my kids play out in these conditions. It's kind of wintry, it's Christmas, but how long is safe for them to be out?
Yeah, so my kids were playing this morning, and at first they wanted to go out in like a sweatshirt and shorts, and I was like, that's not gonna work. I'm like, you don't get it. It's like really cold. So I think the key is how are they dressed, right? First, layers. I made my kids wear hats. They had to wear gloves, and they were touching the ice, you know, because they're going to want to touch. We have, you know, potholes or little, and then they were stomping on the grass because it was really crunchy. We're not used to that. We don't see that. So they want to play in it. I get it. Make sure they're dressed appropriately. Lots of layers, gloves, hats, everything you can, and then just keep an eye on, watch them. I think it's fine if they're going to play for 30 minutes. You know, the winds have come down a little bit, that's helped, but I just wouldn't let them be out there more than 30 minutes without really checking on them.
We've been talking about North Georgia a lot. One person saying, you know, it's 9 degrees here. What about North Georgia makes them really the target for the colder temperature?
Well, they're further north, and they have a higher elevation. So both of those things, the higher you go in elevation, the colder it's going to be. The further north you are, the colder it's going to be. So that's why they're colder. They get the stronger winds as well, again, at the higher elevation. So that is why whenever we get the strongest winds, it's usually in the mountains. Highest snowfall totals, it's in the mountains. Coldest temperatures, it's in the mountains. So that's why,
Yeah, definitely. We've been talking all morning about warnings, watches, advisories. Can you break down exactly what each one means and what it should mean to the viewer that's trying to just understand all of this?
It is a lot. And it gets confusing too, because you have a wind chill warning and then you have a wind chill advisory, and you're like, what's the difference? So I'm actually going to advance this and then we can take it. Let me get to where, one second here. Okay, we'll start with the wind advisory. So yesterday, you may remember, we had a high wind warning for the mountains. That is no longer in effect. That was for winds of 50 miles an hour. So winds have come down. They're not as strong as they were overnight. Overnight, the winds were crazy strong. So the winds have come down a bit. So that is the good thing. The National Weather Service is really good about when the threat is over, they're going to remove that warning or that watch or that advisory. So just know that if there is something still in effect, it's because it's still a problem. We will let you know as soon as it is not a problem. But the wind advisory is still in effect. Sustained winds of 15 to 25 miles an hour, but gusts up to 40 miles still possible, and that is through 10 o'clock tonight. Now, if the winds start to diminish before 10 o'clock tonight, that advisory, they'll either start removing parts of our area from that advisory or they will cancel it altogether. So just because it's till 10 o'clock at night doesn't mean that it's going to stay that way. But for now, it is until 10. That's when we expect those winds to start to diminish. But for now, we will see strong gusty winds until 10 o'clock. And then I want to take you to one more thing here. And this is why. See how the winds come down, Maria? So really strong winds. I would say between now and 5, it's still pretty breezy. After about 5 o'clock, after sunset, we are going to see those winds start to come down. Feels like temperatures. It's going to feel very, very cold here as we head pretty much all weekend long. It will feel like it's below zero most of today into tomorrow morning. By tomorrow afternoon, we'll start to get a little better, but it's still going to stay below freezing. So here are more warnings and advisories. And again, as you said, it depends on where you are. If you are in pink, so basically from Banks, Hall, Forsyth, Cherokee, down all the way to Polk County and north, you have a wind chill warning. Feels like temperatures as cold as 20 below zero, which it's crazy, right? 20 below zero.
I'm from an island.
Yes,
so
exactly.
All of this has been very impressive to me.
Yeah. And then the areas in blue is a wind chill advisory, so as cold as 5 below zero. And again, a lot of that is how cold the actual temperature is and the winds. And you combine the two, and that tells you what the wind chill temperature is, which is how cold it feels, which is really what matters, right? How cold it feels.
Right.
That's the big thing.
And I gotta ask, you know, we have feel-like temperatures and we have the actual temperatures. Why aren't they the same?
Yeah. So the stronger the winds, the colder it feels. So on a 32-degree day with no winds, light winds, where it's you don't feel anything, it feels like 32 because it's 32. On a 32-degree day where you have 20-mile-an-hour winds, it's going to feel significantly colder. So the stronger the winds, the colder it feels. The lighter the winds, then it's a little closer to what the actual temperature is on the thermostat, on the temperature gauge. So yeah, the stronger the winds, the colder it feels. We had strong winds and cold weather, which is kind of the perfect storm of it being dangerously cold. And your body just can't acclimate. And we're not acclimated to
No,
it.
not
So
at
I think
all.
someone who lives in Michigan they probably think that this is not that cold to them.
Right.
But, for us, this is cold.
When we talk about, the infrastructure and some of the other things that Atlanta's just not prepared for this
No.
type of cold.
Yeah, no, not at all. And, we've had a couple hard times over the years with snowmageddon, things like that. Thankfully, this was not a winter weather event. And I will say, if you've been following our forecast and our first alerts, we've been pretty spot on from the beginning that we were not expecting this to be a big event as far as snowfall totals or ice, because ice obviously is horrible. But from the get-go, the models have done really well with picking up on what we were going to see with this system. And, we've been saying day after day after day, first alert for the cold and the wind, not for wintry weather. And that's important to note because we could have had wintry weather, and it's really hard here to get snow. On average, we see 2.2 inches of snow a year, but we haven't had that since 2018. So we haven't had it in a couple years. We'll probably do. Hopefully we don't get it, though. I personally do not want it. I know a lot of kids do. But yeah, so I totally lost my train of thought. I start going on my tangents.
I was going to say, on the digital side of
Yeah.
things, we've been monitoring all the comments, and the top conversation around weather has been, is it going to snow Friday or Saturday? Where at so I can be there
Right,
for it?
I know.
I know the answer from the meteorologists
Yeah.
have been, don't count on it.
Don't count on it. And my kids ask me the same thing. They're like, is it going to snow? And I'm like, no. It's good and bad. Obviously, the kids love it. If everyone's safe on a weekend, I love it. I don't love snow in our forecast on a Monday when there's cars on the road and people are going to work just because of the danger associated with it. And as you said, our infrastructure, we're not really built to handle that. We can, but it's not something we're good at just because it's not something we see very often. But yeah, so this time around, thankfully, we did not have that winter weather. I know for the kids, they're disappointed because a white Christmas would have been nice for them.
Some snow flurries.
Some snow flurries would have been nice, but the cold and the wind, again, we've been talking, we were looking back at when we started talking about this first alert and the cold air coming from Russia, and it was December 6th.
Oh, wow.
So it's been almost 3 weeks that we've been forecasting this huge cold blast.
And I was hoping you could speak to the weather nerds and maybe some people who are curious about this. We are able to catch these forecasts pretty early on. How do you navigate that? I know you're looking at different models, but what's your process?
Yeah, so computer models, and we look at where the air originates from. So this came from Russia, and and then we see as it comes down through Canada, and we track this air, and we see where is it originating from and how cold is it when it's originating from that location. So we talk about the polar vortex, and you hear these words over and over. And it's really interesting to me because now it's more common terminology. Back in the day, I feel like they never used
Nobody
those
knew.
words on the national news, and now you hear it all the time. But yeah, it's where is it originating from? How cold is it from that location? And then you just track it coming through. And again, we've been tracking this since early December. So we knew it was coming. Sometimes it's a matter of how far south is the front going to go. So a lot of times you'll notice that really cold air makes its way into the Midwest or even New England, but we don't get it here in Georgia because the front almost stalls before it gets here. That's why Florida never really gets cold, because the front sometimes doesn't make it all the way south. This front will make it through Florida, so although Florida's not going to be nearly as cold as what we're seeing, they're going to be chilly for
They're
what
gonna
they're
feel
used to.
the
They're going to
change.
feel this, yes. So they might have to put on sneakers over flip-flops, but that's another thing we look at, is how far south is the cold air actually going to get.
And part of why we wanted to jump on this live stream was because this was important to navigate people through this, especially in Atlanta where they're not used to it. But I was hoping, you regularly provide updates to the minute, really, on our First Alert app. If you could walk us through that, because I know some people, they're just on the go, but they need that information
Right.
on hand.
Yeah, and I get it. There's so many apps out there, and my pet peeve is friends or family who just use the Apple, they're like, oh, my Apple app says blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, you're my friend, put that away, don't ever say that to me again. Because those are auto-generated,
Right.
So there's no way someone is sitting there, whoever does the Apple app, I'm sorry, but it's not a person looking at the data, looking at the zip code, looking at the fronts. We're doing all that, and we're actually putting that data into the app for your location. So it's going to be a much better forecast as far as accuracy as opposed to the Apple. And it's generally okay, but the First Alert app is going to give you down to where you're located. You put in your zip code. It knows where you are too. Right. So let's say you're going to Lake Oconee. It knows you're in Lake Oconee, so it's going to give you the alerts for where you're located. So it's really important to turn on the location when you have our app.
Yeah, and I found that really convenient. I know sometimes when I'm visiting friends or getting a little outside of the perimeter, I like to pull up that app and really plan out my day around that. So it's one, I appreciate that it's up to date, like with the latest information. I'm not looking at outdated information from the day before, but also it gives me what I need to know about my area versus a general rundown.
Yeah, for sure. And when you travel, again, it will keep you updated. It has a future radar, which is really good. It has lightning alerts, which my kids do swim team. We're a big swim family. So for us, that's huge because it gives us warning that lightning is in the vicinity or 3 miles away, 5 miles away. So I'm always watching the radar, so I know those things, but a non-meteorologist wouldn't know where the lightning is, where it's coming from, get out of the pool, things like that. So year-round, it's good.
The first day I installed that app, we had a rainy day and there was lightning, and I was on the road. I'm a nervous driver. I don't like driving in the rain, but I was at a stoplight and I looked down on my phone because I get a notification and it says lightning within a mile. And as soon as I look up, I see that lightning come down, and I'm like, that is
it's so good.
So good.
See, it's so good. It is a really, really good app, and we also do videos. We send videos on it constantly. So it's the best way to have us, me, Cutter, Ella, Courtney, the whole crew, Fred. We're actually making these videos, and they're only 60 seconds max.
Which is
like
good.
It shuts us up at 60 seconds. No, it's good because we can talk forever. You know that. So it's good because you can watch a 60-second video and get everything you need to know, and it's constantly updated by us, and these forecasts are done by us. It's not auto-generated. It's not a computer giving you the forecast. It's people who are actually invested in you, so it's going to be the most accurate you can get, the most timely you can get, and it's going to keep you safe, which is really our goal, is we just want everybody to be safe.
Yeah, truly. I know we're going to touch back with you at 3 o'clock on our Atlanta News First newscast, but I appreciate you keeping us updated.
This is fun. Let's do this again.
Absolutely.
But without the cold and the winds.
We'll be here for the sunny day.
I want to do it in August, yes, when it's sunny. And we'll do it at the pool.
The pool day.
That's what we're going to do. It's a date. It's a plan.
Someone's going to hold us to that. We're going to get an email. Thank you so much, Jen.
Thank you, Maria.
I really appreciate it. All right, let's take a look back out. Here is a live picture of the airport. We've been talking about travel all day. That's been a real reality of people dealing with delays and flight cancellations. But taking a look outside, it looks pretty clear right now. We were just talking to our Tori Cooper, who was telling us, there's some lines, but ATL staff, they seem to be moving everybody through, trying to work around any cancellations and delays. So looking at the roads now, across the country, we've been seeing some issues, especially for those dealing with the blizzard. I mean, take a look at that. That is crews responding to a car that fell in Brush Creek. Not in Atlanta, but giving you a look that we are not the only ones dealing with weather-related incidents. So a lot to be said there, just an unfortunate situation, and you can see crews working around the clock pretty much across the country to respond to these weather incidents. All right, I'm going to take a second to look at some of your comments. The point of this live stream is to directly connect with you, answer any and all questions that you have. So I am going to look through some of those. Carl Ferris saying it is 9 degrees in Hillsville. Goodness, Carl, I couldn't possibly stick a toe outside in those conditions. For those that weren't here earlier this morning with us, I am from Hawaii. It is an island where if it's 60 degrees, people get concerned because that is our definition of cold. Usually we float around the 75s, 80 degree weather line with some nice sea breezes. So definitely moving to Atlanta has given me a whole new experience with the weather, and I am very thankful to be inside today. But Carl, hopefully you're inside too. Stay safe. A couple other questions. Let me see if we have any. Strange forever on YouTube saying seeing the weather like this makes me wish I was somewhere warmer. Me too. But hopefully everybody is staying warm right around this time, making sure that they are in good hands. All right, let's take a look around the country a little more. I'm going to pull up South Illinois. This is video that we got of drivers on the road navigating this blizzard. Just taking a look at that for a moment. Wow, again, guys, I don't know how many times I've said this. I'm a nervous driver. I would pull over and just wait. If that took a day, I just would not be driving in those conditions. That is, you have to have some courage to be able to do that, but that is South Illinois that you're looking at, dealing with some blizzard conditions. Again, Illinois, Kentucky, Missouri, Indiana, all experiencing blowing snow problems, especially the motorists dealing with that Arctic cold front that is making its way across through that area. The National Weather Service actually warned of rain turning to snow in the Quad State area, up to 4 inches actually, with wind gusts of 35 to 45 miles per hour. Just weather you do not want to be in. And some more icy roads for you. This is a picturesque winter, I should say, but definitely not one that you want to be outside, especially in a car dealing with. You can see some of that ice on the road conditions. Hopefully their cars are prepared to take that on as they do hit those roadways. And I also want to take you out to Kentucky, where the Kentucky Sheriff's Deputy actually remarked on some roadway issues they were having due to some of the ice and weather conditions. Take a listen. Sliding onto that, yeah, I mean, even standing, I can't imagine driving through those roads. A very good demonstration of road you do not want to be on at this time. And then taking another look at the airport, this is just video that we've gathered from across the country of people trying to navigate travel, trying to navigate the weather. I mean, take a look at that snow blowing just across this area. Definitely cold conditions you don't want to be around for. We don't have snow here in Atlanta, but we are experiencing that bitter cold and those wind chills from that Arctic cold front that has been making its way over for sure. All right, and taking a look back, I wanted to take a second to show you a map of some warming centers that are open and operating across Atlanta. This is right now what you're looking at, a live map. I'm going to read off some of those warming centers here. If you are somebody who's experienced a loss of power and you don't have proper layering or clothing to deal with being in your house, you're going to want to locate, at least identify at this time, a warming center in your area. So let me read off some of these. The Salvation Army on Marietta Street has opened a warming center. Some other locations, Gateway Center on Pryor Street, DeKalb Fire Station 6, that's on Flat Shoals Road, Solomon's Temple, Mission at the Shepherd's Inn, Trinity Baptist Rescue Mission, as well as Old Adamsville Recreation Center and Central Park. And I wanted to touch upon East Point as well. East Point, who hopefully those streets that we were talking about earlier have their power restored at this time, but for those continuing to experience power outages, the warming center that you're going to want to go to is City Annex at 3121 Norman Berry Drive. Again, that is going to be open later on. East Point is one, Dawsonville, Rock Creek Park, Martin Road is where you're going to want to go, Buford Senior Center on Sawney Avenue, in Chamblee, North DeKalb Senior Center on Malone Drive, as well as in Decatur, Exchange Park Recreation Center. and Mason Mill Recreation Center. Douglasville, I'm moving down this alphabetically. Presley Mill Road is where you're going to want to go. 6167 Presley Mill Road for those out in Douglasville. Duluth, Shorty Howell Park Activity Building, that is on 2750 Pleasant Hill Road. Again, all of these addresses are on our website, atlantanewsfirst.com. That is where you can find this full list that I'm going down, but let's keep going here. Lawrenceville Senior Center on Benson Street. That's a great warming center for those out in Lawrenceville. Ellenwood Fire Station 4. I do want to note, make sure that you are checking our Atlanta News First app or our website at atlantanewsfirst.com, because some of these warming centers are planning to open later on tonight, possibly into tomorrow. Some of them are open now, so you want to verify the times before you do make your way over to those warming areas. Norcross, Jimmy Carter Boulevard, I apologize. Best Friend Park Gym is where you're going to want to go. Snellville on Bethany Church Road. Snellville, your warming center is Centerville Senior Center. Again, 3025 Bethany Church Road. Now the Avondale Estates, your warming center is Fire Station 3 on Clarendon Avenue. And Ellenwood, Fire Station 4 is going to be your destination, 4540 Flakes Mill Road. And Chamblee, North DeKalb Senior Center, that's going to be 3393 Malone Drive. All right, continuing down this list, Woodstock, Latimer Hall, 103 Town Lake Parkway. Canton Action Church is going to be your warming center, 271 Marietta Road. I'll continue down with a couple more, but I just wanted to say, if you had any specific questions or if you wanted to know the warming center of your particular area, let me know where you're watching this from and where you are trying to locate a warming center, and I will give you those, especially if you're in the North Georgia area. You heard from our Chief Meteorologist Jen Valdez. She was saying that is where temperatures are the lowest, wind chills are being felt particularly more just because of the higher elevation. All right, here Jasper, Pickens County Sheriff's Office is going to be your warming center. Not a bad place to go to. Talking Rock Town Hall for those in Talking Rock, that is off Highway 136. Again, more of these warming centers. Taking a look at this map kind of gives you more of a visual, but we do have them listed out on our website, atlantanewsfirst.com. All right, at this time, we are going to try to connect with our reporter out in the field, Rachel Aragon. Now, she has been following the response for people experiencing homelessness, particularly getting them coats, getting them to warming centers, and really helping them out, because as we've seen in the past, during historical winter points like these, those are the individuals that are going to feel the effects the most. They do not necessarily have a warmth that they can get or a warming location, as well as those facing power outages. They are going to want to find those warming centers. But let's connect with Rachel here to talk a little bit about that response. I'm going to work on getting her up and running with us. For the time being, let's get you a closer look at the snow in Detroit, taking a look at the wind also. I mean, those flags blowing should tell you enough just how powerful the wind and snow is together.
The National Weather Service is calling it a once-in-a-generation type event. It's predicting a bomb cyclone will hit the U.S. today into tomorrow. That's a brutal storm that rapidly intensifies in 24 hours. The service has issued winter weather alerts for more than 90 million people. The Weather Service says temperatures could be life-threatening in parts of the country today. It's put more than 87 million Americans under wind chill alerts. Drivers in some parts of the country are being extra cautious because salt can't melt ice in extreme cold. Frostbite isn't the only danger for people on foot, according to this spokesperson for the National Park Service. Meanwhile, some holiday air travelers are dealing with delays and cancellations. Forecasters say even southern states like Alabama, Tennessee, and Georgia will see wind chills below zero this week. Amy Kiley, Atlanta News First.
Yeah, a lot of people impacted over the next few days. Let's talk a little bit about those really feeling the impacts the most, and that is people experiencing homelessness. We've had our reporter Rachel Aragon following the efforts to get them the resources they need. Rachel, can you hear us all right?
I can, and yeah, it's a really important thing to remember, because while you and I may have the coats and something over our head when we go home tonight, there are many of those here in the city of Atlanta and beyond, of course, who are not as fortunate. I'm going to show you guys a bit where we're at right now. We are off of Lenox Road here off of 85, and the reason why we're here right now at this very hour, in about 10 minutes or so, we are set to meet with homeless advocates. They've been going around the last few days now, just passing out coats and essentials of those who need a place to stay or a way to keep warm. Again, so many people here are fortunate to have those things, but there are few who still need those. I should also say that they've been doing this for quite some time now. And if we've already mentioned it before, I apologize, but if we can recall, I think this past Wednesday was winter solstice, meaning this is just the beginning of this cold season that we're having. So while, again, I can say right now it's not so bad with the sun out, who knows what the next few weeks, if not months, will bring.
Yeah, certainly. Let's talk a little bit about, the need to respond to individuals who just don't have that warm place to go or the resources. The efforts to get them what they need, those coats in particular, have you been able to talk to some of these individuals that are receiving that help?
I talked to a few just a few minutes ago over the phone. We're going to meet with them shortly. And one of the things that they said is the key is to meet those people where they're at. A lot of times, we're based in the city, we're based in very populated portions and high priority areas, but a lot of times it takes people on the streets to go out to the outskirts to meet these people who don't have maybe the needs that you and I have. So again, their plan, as they say, is to meet the people where they're at. They're going to be meeting us here shortly in just a little bit. But again, it's just important to remember today, and as we go deeper into the winter season, that there are many people out there who could use an extra pair of gloves, of course, coats, and just checking on your neighbor when the time calls for it.
And is there anything any individual person can do? We talk about all these great organizations that are actually going out, during this time and trying to help, but is there anything that any one of us can do at this time while we're all enduring this cold?
Of course, people are taking donations, but something we've heard time and time again over the last week or so is, again, checking on your neighbors, checking on the elderly, checking on those maybe around the corner from you who maybe could use something or two. There's always something to contribute. And I also want to mention, before we are meeting with these homeless advocates, this morning, though, our first stop was in Fairborn, and we actually stopped at a home. A woman and her family lived there for 29 years, and they had a big tree snap and fall on their roof going into their second-story bedroom. They said in the 29 years they had lived in that part of Georgia, they've never experienced the winds like that before. Fortunately, though, no one was injured, but it's important to remember, even if you have a roof over your head, make sure everything is safe, because these winds, though, they are very strong, and right now it's nice, but we know earlier this morning and maybe even tomorrow, it may not be as calm.
Has there been any communication about warming centers and helping with transportation that you've heard of for unhoused individuals?
I've seen and heard of people voluntarily doing. In terms of organized efforts, we can still look into that. I'm sure there are out there, but I know people themselves are taking the time, especially during the holiday season, since many people are off, to kind of make that extra effort to give people a ride. And it's not just, again, those who don't have a home, but maybe those who are physically disadvantaged or have trouble getting to a place, maybe because they don't have a car, or they're elderly, or they just need an extra ride. So we are hearing of people, of course, taking that extra step, especially during the holiday season, to get people where they need to be. And again, so far as of right now, the sun's really helping us out, but earlier this morning it was pretty brutal. So just another reminder, if you know someone or know someone who could use a ride, put that out on Facebook or social media. Again, if you see someone in need of help, it's a great time of year to step in.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing about navigating through today for any of us is communication and making sure we communicate with people, our neighbors, our friends, our loved ones, checking in. You were in Fairburn, I believe, earlier covering a downed tree. I mean, that has been an impact that's been seen across Georgia. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so again, I want to stress, talking to the homeowners there, again, 29 years in that house, they said they've had so many trees. I know you can't see it right now, but they had so many trees surrounding that house. They said in the 29 years, they had never had a tree snap and fall on the roof, but it's just an important reminder to be prepared. So if you have trees of any size, really, it could sadly happen. And I just want to stress again that we are at the beginning of the winter season, so we are not at the end of the road yet. So good time to remember that while maybe your home was fine today or tomorrow even, just make sure you do that prep work, because for that family, fortunately, no one was in that bedroom when that tree actually fell, but they are now saying they're going to take a step back and look at the rest of the trees around their home and make sure none of them are in sight to fall.
Yeah, certainly, Rachel. I want to thank you so much. You have been out in the elements. I know a lot of us have been told to, stay inside. This is not the day to really go out. What have you been feeling just from enduring some of this wind and some of these cold temperatures?
So I will say, I think I was mentally preparing for today, and I know that the sun is definitely helping us out, but I have a feeling, though, once the sun goes down, we're going to feel like it even colder. We've had some wind, of course, this afternoon and earlier this morning, but I want to stress that while it may not be as bad as I thought, I'm pretty happy as a Californian to have the sun out with me right now. I know that this is just the start of the winter season, so I think all these tips we're sharing, it's important that we can take them with us in the months ahead.
Rachel, thank you so much. Hopefully you can get back to a little warm spot for the time being. I appreciate you covering this important issue, looking out for people who are experiencing homelessness. That is going to be a top priority for these organizations today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yeah, certainly. Let's talk a little bit about what we're continuing to see across the country. Here later on in our live stream, we are going to connect with our sister station, KTTC, their chief meteorologist, Nick Jansen, who is in Minnesota covering a blizzard condition. He's going to be giving us really an idea of what it's looking like more north, where they are experiencing some more severe impacts. But take a look at this. This is in Buffalo, where zero visibility is being seen. This is just from somebody sending in viewer video. You can see, you can't really tell what's out there beyond these cars, and I imagine that this is a regular city. This is probably a suburb of some sort where you should be able to see farther out, but due to these conditions, the snow, the wind, you're not able to make much out past the outlines of these vehicles, past where that person is standing, and that is quite a sight. I mean, you can see that snow essentially blowing sideways. That's something I've never experienced. Let me know if you've lived in those cold conditions and how exactly you navigated through it, because that definitely calls for staying indoors. And then taking you out to, this is a picture of Brush Creek, I apologize, where a car appeared to have fallen into the creek. Now, not clear how exactly that happened, but likely a result of the weather that they're dealing with, wind, snow, ice conditions that have caused this car to now slide. And you can see those responders addressing that and trying to figure out a way to pull that vehicle out. Hopefully the driver is okay. Hard to tell from this image, but this is something that crews are responding to across the country. I mean, we've seen power outages, rolling outages here in Atlanta and North Georgia, really across the state, but other parts of the country also feeling the effects, particularly vehicles. I think I played this earlier today, but I'm going to play it again. This really tells you just how dangerous the roads are. Not in Atlanta. This is out of Memphis. but you can see those cars trying to navigate, driving along these icy roads, and already a vehicle accident. And that's just been the reality for a lot of these northern states. Just take a look at that. One vehicle trying to pull another, really a challenge during this type of weather. Taking you more through the different states and the video that we're pulling in. This is all from our sister station. I'm looking down at my computer below, following along with you guys. This is out of Detroit. You can see that wind, and here in a moment you'll see some of that snow blowing sideways like I mentioned. That really tells you just from the visual of how intense that Arctic cold front has become. And the vehicles, again, trying to navigate through all of this. So that is something that other states continue to deal with. We are going to check in with our sister station in Minnesota to give you more details on that. But I want to take this time to get you back to here in Atlanta and the latest efforts from officials, from emergency crews, and others that are responding to these weather situations. Primarily the biggest danger, and we've been echoing this all week long, are going to be those wind chills, 35 to 50 miles per hour, possibly less now that the sun's come up and we're closer to the middle of the day. But those continue to cause fallen trees, power outages. You heard from Rachel there talking to a couple who has never had a downed tree on their home. They were confident that their tree was sturdy, and now they're one of the many people who are experiencing a fallen tree and significant damage. So regarding the fallen trees, we are keeping a full list on our website where you can go to see the impacts, possibly a road in your area, a neighborhood, so that you can stay up to date on that. But let's talk about power outages for a moment. I'm going to take this time to check in on whether we have any active outages. I'm going to take a look at the Georgia Power map, at other maps that will tell us. But here's a message that we got from Georgia Power about their response.
I'm Ryan Poole, Georgia Power Storm Center Operations Manager, here to provide you an update on our operations during this event. Overnight last night and into this morning, we received extremely cold temperatures and extremely high winds that have brought down trees and power lines and ultimately interrupted our customer service, primarily in the North Georgia and parts of the metro Atlanta area. Our crews are working safely and as quickly as possible to restore service to those interrupted customers as we deal with this winter event, high winds, and icy roads. To the customers directly affected, on behalf of the Georgia Power team, we want to thank you for your understanding and your patience as we know you deal with extreme cold temperatures in this event in the midst of holiday season. We will continue to provide information to you. We encourage you to visit georgiapower.com/storm to get an update on our overall restoration efforts. On behalf of the team at Georgia Power, please keep safety top of mind through this event and take care.
That message from Georgia Power, who said they've already responded to over 120,000 customers who have experienced loss of power. I do see a few comments that my audio is coming in a little low. I just adjusted the volume. You guys let me know in the comments if it is still coming in too low, and we will continue to make those adjustments. All right, so I was able to pull up that map while we were listening to that message from Georgia Power regarding the response, and here's what it looks like right now in this moment. I'm going to try to zoom in here closer to Atlanta. Let me know where you're watching from and I will pinpoint your specific area. But you can see everything that's highlighted in yellow. That is up to 1,000 people that are experiencing power outages at this time, and that's a direct result from wind chills, from the wind that's going at anywhere from 35 to 45 to 50 miles an hour. Probably likely at this time, as we've been told from our meteorologists, closer to that 35 mile per hour mark. We are tracking that exact wind speed right now in the First Alert app if you wanted minute by minute updates. But take a look at this our outage map. This morning, if you were with us on this live stream closer to 10 a.m., this was a very very yellow. And you can see just the green. Let's not forget about that. That is as many as 500 people without power. That's covering most of the state, as you can see, especially up in North Georgia. We also saw like a spot of blue, I believe, earlier in the morning that really painted a picture of 15,000 people. I believe that was up towards North Georgia that experienced that power outage, but there it is. Take a look at that. That red mark means as many as 3,000 people and more that are without power at this time. So at least 3,000 people in Peachtree Corners now without power. The Georgia map indicating that that number could be far greater. We're going to check in on that for you, but take a look across the country, across Georgia, at the impact it's having. You can see Augusta experiencing those outages from as little as one person to as many as 1,000 people in some areas. And then Savannah, the coastal areas where wind is blowing. Our meteorologist Jen Valdez explained this best. You know, a lot of people called into Georgia Power saying, I don't understand why I'm experiencing a power outage. You know, there wasn't any rain in my area, but that is directly from a wind freeze. That is the reason that we are continuing to experience this. So we are going to continue to monitor this. I'm going to take a moment to check in. Coming up here in a couple minutes, we're going to be talking to Claudine Wilkins. She is with the Animal Protection Society. We want to talk about what you should do for your pet during this time. I know a lot of pet owners have been trying to navigate whether it's good to take my dog out at this time and what they should do, as well as how shelters are responding. So we're going to check in with Claudine in a moment, but I'll leave you here with a map from around the country. This is again Milwaukee. You can see that snow sticking to the floor right now, and just some of that wind visible in the camera as it shakes. All right, and we are connecting with Claudine Wilkins here. She's jumping on a Zoom call with us. We'll be talking about pet safety and really what you should do for your pet. So if you have any and all questions, drop them down in our Facebook or YouTube. We will work on getting those answered. Claudine, can you hear me? All right, give me 1 second. I'm not hearing you. Oh, I think I just got your sound.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you, and just so that you know, we are live at this time. I was just talking about the importance of keeping your pets safe during this weather. I know we talk time and time again about how you should stay indoors, but the big motto that's been reiterated all week is if you're cold, your pet's probably cold too.
Right, that is so true. And I just got back in from outside. It's bitterly cold with this wind chill factor. And, you know, as a practical matter, just put your hand inside your dog's house outside or put a thermometer in there. Obviously, if it's cold, they're going to feel it. And remember, we tend to forget sometimes that our dogs are out or cats are out. And an hour in this kind of weather is not good for any pet.
No, not at all. And that's why I wanted to bring you on. You know, you work closely with organizations that help pets in shelters and pets that are faced with homelessness. What are some of the things that shelters are doing to keep their pets warm right now?
Well, first they're bringing them inside. Number one, that is important. If for any reason you have to leave a pet outside, that house that you're providing or shelter should be insulated. The temperature control should be there. Definitely something to stop the wind flow for a chill factor so that the inside of that house is the ambient temper should be conducive for that dog or that cat or whatever animal it may be. If you have horses, they should be covered with their coverlets and their blankets, and put inside the stable, of course, or the barn that you have. But a lot of things that are happening, basically just making sure they're accounting for each and every animal that's in the shelter has protection from the weather and the elements.
And I know this is something I was thinking about earlier today as I was taking my dog out for a morning break. How long should my pet be outside? You know, we want to make sure that they're getting their playtime in and getting their energy out and not necessarily cooped up. But we also want to be mindful of the weather. Are there some guidelines right now for watching out for frostbite or hypothermia or other issues that pets might face?
Sure, absolutely. And it all, of course, depends on the breed of the animal and the fur and the size and the coat the animal has. I took my two dogs out for a walk today, but I remember to pay attention to the asphalt, see how cold it is, because remember their feet can get cold too. Same thing in the hot summer days. We don't realize how hot the asphalt is. So um, be mindful of what they're touching on the ground or if they're licking something. And also, your walk should be something that you can handle. If you can handle that walk, your pet probably can too, depending on their fur. So, for example, a small toy dog with very thin fur or short fur may not be able to handle the wind chill factor because we're wearing coats and they have short coats. So you can either cover that dog with a sweater or just wrap them up in your own jacket and take them outside for the fresh air. But really base your walk on how you feel on the walk. If it's comfortable for you, it should be comfortable for them.
And I want to take this moment, this might not be a common occurrence, but it could happen. You find some pets that are stuck out in the cold. What can any individual do to help a pet they see just out and about?
Well, one thing to remember is even if you have a conducive doghouse, for example, if you don't have the proper insulation in the room, the temperature inside that house is not going to work. We've seen dogs actually froze to death in igloos, those very dog houses that are sold every day in PetSmart. Igloos are meant for dogs, but if it's too cold outside and it doesn't protect them from the elements, don't assume that that doghouse can do it for you. In North Carolina, in 2018, there was a dog left in an igloo, did not have a flap on the front door, and it was actually dead in the morning from freezing overnight. But one of the things to remember is if when you're walking your dog or you're outside with your dog and you see signs that your dog or cat is not behaving correctly, it could be a sign that they're too cold. So watch for signs that your animal is not acting correctly and normal. And if so, and they don't get better, you might want to contact your veterinarian. But as far as knowing what to do, if you see someone who hasn't brought their animal in or you see a stray, absolutely contact the police because oftentimes animal control do not respond to the calls right away. And if the animal's in distress or may have limited time because of what they're enduring, then you want to call 911. There's nothing wrong with calling that line to, report a crime. And in Georgia, it is a crime not to provide shelter for your animal. Even though it's not written in the law, it clearly says anyone who unjustifiably causes suffering to an animal, they can be charged with animal cruelty.
Yeah, certainly. The Animal Protection Society does a great job for addressing these types of concerns and helping pets. What are some of the things you guys are doing today in response to the weather?
Well, we put out a newsletter yesterday and a warning because we know Governor Kemp has issued a state of emergency. And so we put out not only our toolkit, we write toolkits on our law so that the average person can interpret what it means. And we have a toolkit on our website. It's the animalprotectionsociety.org, theanimalprotectionsociety.org. There you can find toolkits on our Georgia law. One in particular covers shelter. And that's not just for cold weather, but for hot weather as well. Some states across the nation are actually changing the law to make it more descriptive on what's too cold and what's too hot. Hopefully we'll have that one day in Georgia, but we've been involved with at least 10 of our state laws in either changing them or creating them for the protection of animals. And so we've done a lot. We have an annual conference every year called the APA Expo, and anyone is welcome to come. It's where we train law enforcement, prosecutors, animal control, anyone involved in animals, including veterinarians, on the protection of animals and our laws. So remember, the law dictates how we behave in society, so we have to make sure that we all understand that our laws also protect animals who can't speak for themselves.
You know, something we've been talking about here at Atlanta News First has been if you run out of power, which we're seeing power outages across Georgia, you should consider locating your nearest warming center, because it is just not safe to be enduring an area without heat or proper warmth. And I feel like it's safe to say that's the case for animals as well. Do you know if there's organizations working to make sure that animals can go to these warming centers?
You know, you have to check with your local shelter. There's so many across the state of Georgia, I can't really say for sure, but that's a great thing to know in an emergency state. What if you lose your power? We lost our power 3 times last night. And so what do you do for that? First thing you want to do on your checklist of emergency situations is find out if your local shelter will take your animal during that time, and are they open? Will they be open? Because in a state of emergency, a lot of times the employees will go home and stay home, and they won't stay in the shelter. There'll be a few hopefully left behind to make sure the animals are cared for. But I do know of several places that will take animals when there's a domestic violence issue. Ahimsa House is one, and Vets Are Pets and People too in Athens, Georgia, will also take pets during a domestic violence situation. But as far as will they take them during a emergency like today or this weekend, you have to check with your local shelter. The answer is I can't answer that for everyone across the state of Georgia. I do know that warming centers may be only focused on humans, and they may not allow you to bring your dog or cat. So certainly check with them.
Yeah, absolutely. We talk about cold weather and keeping our pets safe at this time. What are some things that you've seen through your experience people do wrong, or things that they might not be remember as they're trying to navigate everything that they need to do to deal with cold weather?
I think they forget, and I think this is the issue, is that somebody who has, say, for example, a dog kept in a doghouse outside all year long, it's been somewhat okay weather. And, you know, in Georgia, we have such unpredictable weather. So when we get these really frigid cold fronts coming in, you have to be mindful that you have a doghouse that may not be proper for this situation. I see oftentimes somebody will just throw hay into a doghouse and think, well, as long as the dog is elevated from the hay, the dog's not going to be cold. And that's just not the case. Be practical. Go in there. Go inside the doghouse. If you can't fit in it, put your hand in there with a thermometer and actually take the temperature of that air in the doghouse and see if there's a wind chill factor as well. Of course, cats really certainly can't handle this type of weather that we have in Georgia today. And of course, the equine and the other types of animals, livestock is covered under the animal cruelty statute. So they too are protected, and therefore whoever's in control and custody of those animals has a duty to make sure their animals are cared for during this type of weather. It can be a misdemeanor and sometimes a felony in Georgia for not providing the proper shelter for your animals.
Claudine, I want to thank you so much for coming on to talk to us about this. I think this is a conversation that often gets forgotten about when we talk about everything that we should consider during a historic weather event just like this one. I want to make sure I didn't leave anything out. Are there any good online resources that pet owners or really anybody can look to for weather-related pet safety tips?
We are always putting tips out on this stuff. So our website, there's two, theanimalprotectionsociety.org and animallawsource.org are great sites for any kind of situation regarding animals. And the one last thing I will say is, remember, there's several victims out there that can't speak for themselves. Of those, animals are number one. They cannot speak for themselves, so they can't tell you if they're freezing cold. So pay attention to the warning signs and make sure they're warm and cuddly too, like you guys.
Claudine, thank you so much. I appreciate it. We're going to have more tips on pet safety on our website, atlantanewsfirst.com. Make sure you check it out. Thanks, Claudine.
Thank you.
All right, so I do want to take this time to just talk a little bit more about pet safety and some tips that we were able to get over the week that we've been covering this Arctic cold front and everything that we've been expecting. Some of the tips that have been we've been given to share with you, bathing your pet as little as possible. I know it's Friday, they might have been out and about playing all week long, but today might not be the best day to bathe your pet because of the cold spell that we're under. Washing too often can often remove essential oils and increase the chance of developing dry, flaky skin, which is not the best for your pet as they're trying to deal with cold weather. Now, as Claudine was mentioning with the Animal Protection Society, it is important to understand what kind of coat your pet has and other things involved in assessing what type of temperature your pet can handle. I know I have a pit bull with short hair that might not be able to withstand the outdoors the way that a husky can. This morning, actually, we took her out for her little potty break, and she was very clear that she wanted to go back inside, so inside we took her. Some other tips for you: massaging petroleum jelly on their paws just to protect the paw pads before going outside for that short break. Just so that they can get that warmth and moisture remaining on their paws. It also helps protect them from salt and chemical agents. We talk about the brine that's being put out on the roads, as well as other things that can be carried over by the wind. That is a great way to help prevent that. Booties, the little socks over your pet's paws, if they are comfortable with those, you can consider those as well, just to protect, again, that paw pad of the feet. Also watching out for things like coolant, antifreeze that can drip from cars that might be near your vehicle. That can be lethal to dogs. It can be deadly. Dogs and cats, or really any animal that you're taking outside. So be sure to clean up any spills and just monitor for those during this time. And then this tip might have came from a pet from what it sounds like, but feeding them a little more, giving them some extra treats just so that they have extra calories and they can make sure that they have those calories that they can use for energy and warmth, as well as making sure they get plenty of water. I know for the most part a lot of us are planning on keeping our pets inside, but making sure that they stay hydrated at this time, and of course, just giving them that warmth that they need, keeping them inside, off of the floors if you can. If you know that you can't heat your house properly to the standard that you'd like, keep them off the floors, away from the windows and drafts where that chill can come in and really impact them. And last but not least, that last tip that was passed down to us: if it's too cold for you, it's probably too cold for them. So keep them inside, warm wherever you are, or make sure that they have the proper space to stay warm, and check on their temperatures. All right, let's get you back to some of the impacts that we're continuing to see. I wanted to take this time for a lot of us that are staying indoors to talk about home prep. We've been emphasizing that you might want to consider covering your pipes if they're exposed and taking other measures to make sure that your home is prepared to handle the conditions that we're going to continue to see today and tomorrow. Here's just some tips that you can follow regarding home prep. I'm going to play you a video that really just lists out everything that you can expect to face, especially if you're in those colder climates, but some general good tips to use as you're navigating this weekend.
Yes, it's money, but it's cheaper than me having the plumber come out.
It's not a big inconvenience to Jerome Walker to let the faucet drip. He does it overnight when the temps are expected to drop.
For sure, once we get to be well below freezing marks, say in the teens, I would start letting it drip.
Walker showed us his step-by-step at home as cold temperatures head our way.
Considering this is an outside wall right here, I would open up the cabinets just like it suggested, you know, to let the heat come in here a little bit more.
And his advice doesn't stop inside the home.
And in my case, I have a towel and a little bag so the towel doesn't get soaked.
Even outside, there are things you should do to protect your house.
The cold air will eventually funnel its way through the faucet tap to the plumbing underneath.
Matthew Zern with Zern Plumbing in Chambly says you'd be surprised the damage that can be done by avoiding these simple steps.
People sometimes make the mistake of leaving hoses attached to hose spigots on the outside of their house. So always want to make sure you disconnect those. People leave their garage doors open inadvertently, which generally can cause, frozen pipes when it gets as cold as it's predicted to get.
Yasmina Alston, Atlanta News First.
All right, and you can see my producer in the camera shot there. Kelsey has been helping me, by the way, on this front this entire time. We were just checking the cameras, making sure everything was working. But she's been helping get this information out to me, so we've been working together all day today, keeping you updated on everything that we know. I want to take a moment to check in on the latest information. If you have any questions, power outages, downed trees, anything in your area that you want to know about, let me know. I'm going to field some of your questions and make sure that we are all up to date. I see just someone saying they wish they were elsewhere during this weather. I can understand that. It is very chilly outside. I think the wind is what's really making it feel as intensely as it is. But taking a moment to look back at the Georgia power outage map, still seeing a lot of power outage issues across the Georgia area. I mean, this is taking up most of the state, as you can see here. That green patch is up to 250 Georgia Power customers. Oh, I got my visual back, I believe. Oh, nope. That's a different thing. All right, lost my visual there, but just reading this off to you, most of Georgia seeing up to 250 customers without power, others seeing as many as 1,000. And then we have an area, I believe in northwest Atlanta, at Peachtree Corners, over 3,000 people without power. That's a red area that I've been monitoring for some time. It doesn't appear to have changed recently, but that's something that we're following as well. Here in about 15 minutes, we're actually going to be connecting with our KTTC sister station in Minnesota. Chief meteorologist Nick Jansen is going to be talking with us about some of what they're feeling up north there, as well as this Arctic cold front that we're seeing across the country. But take a look at some of these impacts here for you. This is in Arkansas. This is the Razorback statue. And to give you just a little bit more of information about it, this is located on the University of Arkansas campus in Fayetteville. That was completely frozen over. I'm going to pull that up again. Take a look at that. That is not something you expect to see, but that is really a perfect example of just how cold it's gotten over there. So that is the University of Arkansas, the Razorback statue, infamous if you're from Arkansas or have seen that before in the past. All right, taking you through some more of the poor conditions seen across the country. Take a look at that. The biggest issues we've seen, low visibility, ice on the road causing problems for drivers, and really just trying to navigate through these blizzards, especially if you're up north or have people up north. This is what they're dealing with at this very moment. Not a pretty sight. Those outside temperatures that you're looking at right now, that's Ohio along I-70. That is a -4-degree weather, strong winds, blowing snow. I mean, the driving conditions are so poor on I-70 that some of those cars are just at a standstill. That was a picture from Friday, both on the east and westbound lanes experiencing these issues, and a couple of tractor trailers that had to be jackknifed, and a dozen or more other vehicles off the road, abandoned, or waiting for roadside assistance. That is a gnarly picture to look at. Just taking a look at some of those blizzard-like conditions that we're seeing out in the Midwest, giving you a real idea of what the rest of the country is feeling, especially as you head out that way. taking you through some more pictures. This is in Buffalo. It's actually a viewer video that gives you a perfect idea of the low visibility that I was talking about earlier. You can't see really anything past those vehicles. That is where things get kind of hard to navigate through, and definitely in Buffalo, if you're in that area specifically, you have been taking that indoor advisement very seriously. You're not really going to make it out and about to any outdoor plans. Really, it's become a dangerous situation. Those wind chills, the snow that's covering those vehicles that you're looking at, it's just impossible to navigate. And I'm sure even from within the house, you can feel some of the impacts. This is, again, viewer video from Ashley sent to one of our sister stations that we were able to get over to you. And then taking a look at Kentucky as well, this is actually from the sheriff's deputy's office, basically saying, hey, the roads are icy, and that is how icy it is. You're not getting your vehicle past if you're already having trouble sliding, as this deputy clearly is. All right, getting you back to Atlanta. If you're not in Atlanta, from wherever you're watching, let us know. I want to talk a little bit about the signs of hypothermia. I'm going to pull up my graphic here that I had made earlier. These are the different signs of hypothermia. You can have anything from confusion, shivering, difficulty speaking, sleepiness, and stiff muscles. I know I start to feel a little sleepy when it's cold, especially chilly as the way we've been experiencing it all day today. But make sure that you aren't outside and feeling these things, because that could easily be a sign of hypothermia. And I want to get into some other signs that you can expect. I'm going to pull up my notes here that if you can hear my papers shuffling. Some signs of frostbite, because that is most likely going to impact you if you do have exposed skin and you're outdoors for long periods of time. The advice for dealing with frostbite is just to get inside immediately. Frostbite is damage caused to the skin and underlying tissues by extreme cold. Now, it could lead to long-term numbness in the affected area. It could also lead to infection, and if severe enough, it could lead to a need for amputation. Of course, in our conditions here in Atlanta, that's likely not going to be the case, but when you're dealing with frostbite, the best thing you can do is get inside to a warm location and warm up as soon as you can. The sooner you act, the faster, or the better, I should say. A warm compress or a warm water is usually the best way to bring any oncoming signs of frostbite down. You do not want to use hot water. That could lead to a dangerous situation. You could burn yourself. You could also have a negative impact. So warm water is the recommendation, actually the warmest that you can possibly stand. And do not rub your skin. I know it's kind of easy to rub our hands together like this, especially if you have like frostbite along this area. That is not the advice you want to take. You want to make sure that you are minimizing the damage that you can have on your skin. So that advice there is just to get inside, get into a warm area, depending on where on your body you are experiencing this frostbite, and then avoiding hot water, avoiding rubbing, which can damage the skin, and then taking some pain relief, because it's not pleasant. I've had frostbite before. It hurts. You want to pop some Advil to help you with that pain relief, and remove any and all wet clothing. Wet clothing, you don't want to let it dry on you. That can also lead to an issue. Now, let's talk about prevention, preventing frostbite. That is the key, really, when you're going outside, especially if you're somebody who has to work outside. That is something that you want to consider. Best way is to bundle up and limit your time in the elements. Limit your time outside. I know we've been talking to our reporters out in the field. We've been advising them, when you're not talking to us, let's keep it short. Let's get you back inside to some warmth. Let's prevent any and all frostbite possibilities, hypothermia, things like that. We have these tips and resources, much like the graphic I pulled up, all of this advice on our website, atlantanewsfirst.com.
The National Weather Service is calling it a once-in-a-generation type event. It's predicting a bomb cyclone will hit the U.S. today into tomorrow. That's a brutal storm that rapidly intensifies in 24 hours. The service has issued winter weather alerts for more than 90 million people. The Weather Service says temperatures could be life-threatening in parts of the country today. It's put more than 87 million Americans under wind chill alerts. Drivers in some parts of the country are being extra cautious because salt can't melt ice in extreme cold. Frostbite isn't the only danger for people on foot, according to this spokesperson for the National Park Service. Meanwhile, some holiday air travelers are dealing with delays and cancellations. Forecasters say even southern states like Alabama, Tennessee, and Georgia will see wind chills below zero this week. Amy Kiley, Atlanta News First.
Not sure if you guys heard some of those audio issues or if it was just in my ear, but the word there is a lot of states around the country experiencing those issues and being told, this is the time that you're going to want to stay inside. It is the holidays. Try to plan some indoor holiday activity. Our meteorologist, Cutter Martin, earlier today was recommending some ideas. You could watch a movie, you could make some hot chocolate, and really make it an indoor holiday weekend. Want to get you out to some new information that we've gotten into the newsroom. A large part of why we wanted to do this live stream is to get you updates as soon as we hear anything. And this is straight from Sandy Springs UPS telling us that service has been severely impacted by winter weather. I'm going to read this directly to you. Significant weather events across several regions of the U.S. are impacting the UPS air and ground network, including UPS hubs in Louisville, Kentucky, Rockford, Illinois. As a result, some deliveries and pickup services in these areas will be affected. We will work to ensure the safety of our employees while minimizing effects on service. Now, the contingency plans are in place to help ensure that shipments arrive at their final destinations as quickly as conditions permit. So that quote directly from UPS, which is based out of Sandy Springs, saying, hey, expect some of your packages. They might come a little later because of this weather. They said that their priority is to ensure employee safety while also working through a plan to get packages out in a safe and speedy manner. So that is going to impact several states across the U.S. Primarily, if you've ordered something from those areas that are experiencing those blizzard conditions, you can take this time to track your package to see any and all updates. That there very well might be a delay. If you have a UPS shipment, maybe a present on the way, that might be coming a little later. Just communicate with your loved ones and let them know. And I do believe at this time we are going to be joined by our sister station, KTTC, out in Minnesota. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can. How are you today?
I'm great, and I can hear you. Now, I know you have been hard at work pretty much all week, just getting your folks out there ready for this weather. And I got to show some of the blizzard conditions in Minnesota to our viewers just before hopping on here with you. But take me through what you guys are experiencing out there.
Yeah, sure thing. So we're located in Rochester, Minnesota, so that's the southeast corner of the state here, and we cover not just Minnesota but also Iowa, and Iowa has some blizzard-like conditions too. What I can do real quick is I can pop up one of our cameras, and this is kind of what we've been trying to talk to viewers about and people in Minnesota. Is this is the whiteout conditions that we'll have, especially in rural areas, right? So, because if we're in town, it's okay. Travel conditions aren't too bad, and I have a couple more cameras that we can look at here. for example. So this is kind of what we're seeing. So in the lower right-hand corner, that's downtown Rochester, Minnesota. We have Highway 52, which is a major highway that moves right through Rochester. Notice the roads are okay once you're inside town, but our Grand Meadow camera, which is on one of our towers, notice the visibility issues then. So that's something that we've been trying to stress to viewers and the public is all these blizzard-like conditions will be outside of the city limits, and we've really been seeing that to dropping visibility down to maybe around a quarter a mile or so. And the big threat here is not just the blowing and drifting snow. I know it's cold down by you guys too, but here it's a little different. Here temperatures are brutally cold, you could say, and once we get to dangerous type levels with some of these temperatures here. So I'll pop up what we have right now, our feel-like conditions. So our wind chills are approaching 35 to 40 below. When this happens, we can have frostbite to take place within just a matter of about 10 minutes. The coldest we've been here in Rochester, and I popped on Minneapolis too, because a lot more people know where Minneapolis is than Rochester, Minnesota. But earlier this morning, we hit 43 below for the wind chill here in Rochester, and officially at Minneapolis at the airport there at MSP was 37 below. So that's some dangerous type conditions that we have. And obviously with the whiteouts that we have currently, you don't want to get stuck by any means when we have temperatures like that.
No, you don't. And Nick Jansen, chief meteorologist at KTTC, we're talking to. I wanted to let you know I'm originally from Russia, and the lowest I've ever experienced was -30. So you guys got me beat. I can't imagine what navigating all of that must be like. You are probably a lot more comfortable with dealing with the cold. This has been kind of a shock to us in Atlanta. Any advice for us over here?
Yeah, the advice is just to hold on. It won't last too long, and I know it's cold even if you have single digits down in Atlanta, Georgia. But always remember, it could be worse. You could be up north where we're at, where we have surface temperatures at 15 below. And a lot of people, I've heard comments too from viewers and phone calls saying, "Hey, Nick, this is just Minnesota. Why do we keep talking? We're used to this here up north." So for a lot of people here, it's just your average Thursday and Friday, to be honest with you.
So for your viewers over there, this is a casual day, I should say. I was hoping.
Yeah, it can be dangerous at times, but for a lot of people, they're telling us, hey, 2018 was way worse than what we're experiencing now.
Nevertheless, such an important part of your job is keeping people weather ready, especially with the severe impacts that you guys are seeing. I was hoping you could take us through some of the impacts seen around the country and how this cold front and Arctic blast is moving exactly. I think a lot of people are still confused as to what exactly the movement is here.
Yeah, so it's been a tricky system, especially for us in the upper Midwest, because we had snowfall on Wednesday, but the winds weren't really ramping up until, say, Friday. So yesterday we had a big break, a big lull in the storm before the blizzard warnings actually took place. And I can show some of the warnings that we have just across our area here. So we're located in Rochester, so you can see right in the middle of the map here. So Rochester is right here. We're just to the southeast of Minneapolis. And the thing, because national media-wise, we've been calling this a generational storm, right? And the reason why that is because look at all the advisories that we have down towards the southeast here, even down towards Florida. Just north of Miami, we have winter weather alerts just north of Miami. We have wind chill warnings and wind chill advisories all across the southeast. You guys are included in that down in Atlanta. That's what makes this something that I necessarily haven't seen before just in my career, with all the different alerts and whatnot. And this is really because of that strong low pressure system that moved right through the center of the country, which then allows a high pressure system to move in the back behind it, and that's bringing down in all the Arctic air and really pushing down to the south. So I know people in Florida are not looking forward to maybe some of these temperatures where they could be, who knows, 15, 20 degrees with those wind chills, and that's completely different than what you guys are used to down in the South.
No, certainly. Nick, I know a part of your job is to help people navigate. You know, you look at models and the complicated movement and math and understanding the meteorological data, but part of your job is translating that to the general public so that they can plan around these weather events. We are getting a lot of warnings, watches, advisories. Can you break down what the difference is between all of those? Because I know it can get a little confusing.
Yeah, it can get confusing between the watches and warnings and advisories. And I think that's something that the National Weather Service, because on this side of the business or the weather world, the broadcast side, we're not the ones necessarily putting out the warnings and that type of stuff, but we're the ones then that we have to tell the public about them. So we really have to understand what the National Weather Service is looking at when they're issuing those watches and warnings. The easiest way to always explain it, and I've seen a lot of Mets across the country do it, it's kind of like when you're either baking a cake or baking cookies, right? The watch is when you get all those ingredients together because you're getting ready for maybe that final product. That final product would be either some cookies or whether a cake, whatever you're making. And then finally in the weather world, once all those ingredients come together, that's when you have those warnings. So the winter warnings are no different than which you guys are familiar with severe thunderstorm watches and tornado watches that you would have during the summer months. The winter alerts are the same. So we, at one point in time this week, we had a winter storm watch in place across our area. So that's when we start to communicate to the public, hey, these conditions are possible if everything plays out correctly for maybe some havoc on the roadways coming up through the later portion of the week. So that's kind of like the easiest way to explain the difference maybe between some watches and some warnings that we would have right now.
Yeah, certainly. Something that we've seen time and time again through doing this live stream are questions surrounding precipitation turning to ice, and when there's no precipitation, why we still see power outages. I know our chief meteorologist, Jen Valdez, talked about how wind chills and those can still impact power. What are you guys seeing out there in terms of impacts, and what's the cause, the primary cause of those right now?
So our power outages haven't been too bad, which is fantastic. And that's something that we were worried about because just last week we had a very wet, heavy snow. And what I mean by wet, heavy snow is it's a really good, and a lot of people maybe watching don't even know what wet, heavy snow is. It's a good packing snow where you can make snowballs. It weighs a lot more. The water content is higher within those snowflakes, and that's sitting on tree branches. And we've had temperatures well below freezing. We haven't been above freezing in a long time, above 32 degrees. So the snow stayed. So that's on all the tree branches. Then we have the wind gusts here today, which have been pretty strong, right? We've had wind gusts here close to, and I can pop it on. We've had wind gusts close to, this is around just our viewing area here. We're at 46 mile per hour gusts there in Mason City, 44 here in Rochester. So you add on those winds with the snow on the tree branches, that's when, right, we have weight on the tree branches, winds, we start breaking tree branches, that falls on power lines, and maybe some power outages. We haven't had a ton of that. We haven't had a lot of reports of power outages. Thankfully, that's worst case scenario when you have these dangerously cold temperatures. That'd be the last thing that we would want to see would be some power outages. But thankfully, that it's been pretty minimal here across southeast Minnesota.
Yeah, certainly. You talked about, you know, navigating information from the National Weather Service and other models. How, I guess, if you could speak a little to the weather nerds out there, or people who are just curious about how meteorologists are able to detect this so early on, what are the main things that you guys are looking for, and how do you proceed in a weather event like this?
Sure. So our whole job is looking at future type events, right? So I kind of knew, I'd say probably last Saturday, that Wednesday and Thursday, well, we're looking at a deepening trough is what we would call it, a dip in the jet stream here impacting the upper Midwest. Now, I didn't necessarily last Saturday think that we'd be looking at, you know, winter weather alerts all the way down into Georgia and Florida with this system. But as we got closer and closer with this center of the low making it onto land, it became more clear that, hey, this will be impacting a majority of the country. It's right before Christmas. So that's kind of the struggle then, too, where you kind of have to tiptoe the line of, well, we also don't want to overhype things, right? That's the last thing that we want to do, but we want to make sure people are prepared, especially up here when we do have those big time travel impacts, whether that's snow, wind, or ice. And this event might have been a little underwhelming for people in our area because we originally forecasted for, say, 3 to 6 inches of snow by Monday and Tuesday. Wednesday night rolled around, we only had close to around 3.4, 3.5. So in that range, but still on the lower end. And I know a lot of people were thinking, well, it's underwhelming because with a blizzard, you don't necessarily have to have the snowfall. With blizzard warnings, you have to have winds and lower visibility, and that's why we've had that warning, because of what it looks outside right now. So you kind of have to tiptoe that line a little bit on trying to stay level-headed and not getting overexcited about some events, especially up north where people are used to this type of weather.
Yeah, and just looking at that live picture you pulled up, I can't imagine living in that, but that's probably why I don't live in Minnesota. Do you guys have any other live pictures you could show us? I mean, this is just such a different picture than what we're seeing here.
Sure, so I can pull up, these were some of the live, so we have live plow cams, which I'm sure a lot of people watching were like, what is that? So this is across some of our highways here once we get outside in some of the rural areas, and that's I-90, so that's a major interstate that runs basically from Chicago all the way through Wisconsin, through Minnesota, and then into Dakotas. And actually I-90 has been closed west of another major highway, I-35. I can pull up here's our winter road map. So this is something that is very, very helpful here for us. And notice all the coloring here. So the blue, any road that has blue on it is an indication of partially covered roads. And then the red here is all the closed roads. This one right here, if you can kind of follow my cursor here, this road that I have highlighted, that is I-90. That is a major interstate in southern Minnesota, and it is currently closed. MnDOT, or Transportation for the state, they just released a statement saying they were closing it again. It was closed last night and this morning. It opened for about 6 hours, and then went ahead and closed it again. Let me see if I can't pop up a couple plow cameras here so we can get a live look at some of this stuff. So this would be live right now at 1:32, and this is out just west of our area. So there's not much to see. So this is what we've been trying to warn people about the past couple days, is once you get out of the city limits, things will be a lot worse. Because if I switch back over to my weather computer here, you can see in downtown Rochester, everything's fine. The sun's shining, even on the northwest side of town. Traffic is moving nice, but then we look out in rural communities. This is what the images we're seeing right now with some of our plow cameras. So this would be classified as what is called a ground blizzard. So there's no falling precipitation at this point in time. What's happening is it's all the snow that we've already accumulated on the ground. Our snow depth is close to 12 inches, and now this is blowing and drifting across the major interstates and major highways here in Minnesota. So that's what's so dangerous. On top of Christmas Eve's tomorrow, a lot of people are traveling, so that definitely has an impact with the language and stuff we want to use when trying to get these alerts across to people.
Yeah, certainly. Thank you for sharing that. That really helps visualize just what you all are dealing with over there. I know another thing that came up in our comment section was, when is this all going to blow over and end? And maybe Minnesota is a good indication of that, maybe not. What are you guys monitoring as far as looking ahead?
So looking ahead it's still cold up here in Minnesota. We'll still have wind chills, I think, the next couple days, Christmas Eve and Christmas, about 15 to 25 below. That's not 40 below, but still cold. It'll be one of the coldest Christmases we've had in quite some time. It'll be the most snow we've had on the ground since, I believe, 2016, where we had about 8 inches of snow on the ground, and we have that foot of snow. We are actually tracking another chance for snow, too. We could have maybe another 1 to 2 inches coming up Christmas night into Monday morning, so Sunday into Monday. So it's winter here in Minnesota, right? We average 50 inches of snowfall a year in Rochester. We average 2 to 3 sub-zero days, where our temperatures have not reached above 0 degrees since, I believe, early Thursday morning. So, or I should say late Wednesday night. Yeah, late Wednesday night into early Thursday morning. That was the last time we were above 0 degrees. We still have current temperatures below 0. We'll stay below 0 until maybe Saturday afternoon. We might get to 1. So it could be one of our longest sub-zero stretches that we've had since the early 1900s.
I know the people in Rochester, the people in Minnesota are resilient for these types of weather events, but I just hope you guys can all stay safe. I know we were wishing for some snow down here, but you guys are probably over it.
Yeah, were you guys really wishing for snowfall though?
Yeah, people were asking all week in our emails about snow flurries because we just don't get snow, but I'm sure they don't want the type of snow you have.
Probably not. Maybe it's just because it's around Christmas. It'd be nice to have a couple snowflakes falling down for the holiday this weekend.
Nick, I want to thank you so much. Of course, our sister station at KTTC, thank you for keeping your community informed and sharing some information with us.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
All right, taking you back from the Midwest to Atlanta, talking a little bit about the continued impacts we see. The sunshine doing a lot to help us out right now, but those chilly temperatures still very much a reality. We've been talking to our field crews, our meteorologist Cutter Martin earlier, saying the roads are actually not as bad as we were anticipating, and a large part of that is because of the sunshine and just the brine efforts and other measures that we're taking to make sure the drivers were as safe as possible. We are actually going to connect with our reporter Abby, who is also braving the elements. She's outside of a Waffle House right now, so we are going to be checking in. I just want to know if this Waffle House is closed, because that'll really tell you if you need to stay indoors. Checking in on the Waffle House meter for weather conditions. Let's see if she can hear us here. Abby, can you hear me all right?
Okay, stand by.
All right, let me see if I can get Abby here. Abby, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Maria.
I think the last time we were on a live stream together, we were bringing the people of Atlanta election coverage, but now you are standing outside of one of my favorite places, Waffle House. I just want to know, are they closed? Are they open? What's going on?
They are open, and let me tell you, the cold weather is not keeping people from grabbing that big all-star breakfast here. They have about 10 employees inside, even some people from their corporate office still out there helping to serve people. And what I think is so cool about Waffle House is Christmas is actually their Super Bowl. So they prepare all year long to serve up those great big waffles, all-star breakfasts to families. This is a tradition for a lot of Georgia families. One of my friends from up in Knoxville, where I used to work, Sam, his whole family who live here in Atlanta, that's what they do. This is their Christmas tradition. So you think about this weekend, it's pretty big for shoppers, pretty big for restaurants as well. Something that we're seeing is people are still out there braving the cold to grab their food, to grab those last minute gifts.
Abby, I gotta say, I did not grow up around Waffle House, so I actually learned this recently, that they really are the go-to spot for severe weather. That is like almost a bucket list moment. You have to make it out to eat there, or just to see if it's open. If it's closed, that's when you know the weather is really bad. So it's good to know that that's not the case today.
Yes, so they have something, it's called the Waffle House Index, and we normally see it down south, a lot of the areas where you can see hurricanes, and during that time, Waffle House, they really do try to stay open. There's 3 different levels, and you can think of it like a stoplight. There's green, it means you can come, they have the full menu, they have lots of power, they want to serve and help you. There's yellow. Okay, and yellow, they might have to use a generator. They might have a backup menu if they lose power, but they're still ready for everybody. And red really means that there's some severe weather. You need to stay home. Their workers need to stay home. But they really do try to keep it in that green and yellow. And even today, we were just talking with some of the folks over at Waffle House. They said, one of their stores lost power, but they have backup generators all over Metro Atlanta. So when that happens, they just bring over the generator and they keep things going. Because a lot of people, this is where they go if they lose power. They find a local restaurant.
Yeah, good point. I'm wondering if you had a chance to talk to any of these restaurant goers, if they went there as a source of warmth or just because they had to check if Waffle House was open.
Yeah, we did find somebody who lost power, and he actually already had plans to go and see his friends. They all wanted to get together for a big get together, but he said he lost power, and he was so thankful that the Waffle House was open, that they were able to grab that quick bite. He said the first thing he went for was the hot coffee, because that's what you want when you want to warm up. You want that hot food and that hot coffee. And Waffle House, they really do try to stay open for everybody, especially now during this time. What a great option. Find a local restaurant. Go to your local Waffle House. You can keep eating and you can stay warm.
Speaking of staying warm, I noticed you're not inside. How's the weather out there right now for you?
You know, when you're out in the sunshine, it really is okay. I got my gloves on. I have about 5 layers of clothes, at least on my upper half, 2 pairs of pants on. I got my shoes on with a lot of socks. I'm kind of used to this weather. I grew up north, so lived in Georgia for, I don't know, maybe about 6-7 years. But I still have a little bit of that northerner in my blood. So we're doing okay, especially in the sun. It's not too bad, but we headed over to Buckhead earlier for the Christmas market there. The Christmas market, it's in the shade, and that's when you really start to feel it. But let me tell you, even in that shade, there were heaters, there was hot cocoa. People are still warming up as much as they could.
And Abby, I didn't get a chance to be outside much of today, so I didn't get to see if people were out and about. You mentioned the Christmas market. Were people still going on with their outdoor shopping, or are you noticing less than normal traffic flow?
So here's what I've noticed. People, they want a reason. A lot of people, if they don't need to be out, they aren't going to try to head out, try to stay on the couch. But there's a lot of people who need to do that last minute shopping. And we headed over to Virginia Highlands as well. And we met 2 sisters shopping for their mom, looking for a book for her, a very thoughtful present. So we are seeing people still coming out and about, going to those holiday markets, doing that shopping because, you know, Christmas, it's on Sunday. People need those presents, need those last minute gifts.
Yeah, I know. I was making sure that I had everything done before Friday. Perks of working around meteorologists, they will let you know that the weather's going to be bad. Abby, thank you so much.
Let me tell you, not everybody knows that, so it's a good thing that we are in our line of work.
Right, exactly. Thank you so much. I appreciate you being out there and giving us that perspective. Hopefully Waffle House stays open, because that's always good news, but that you're able to also get a little warm after this. All right, so that was your Waffle House report. If you didn't think we were going to cover all grounds, we've covered all grounds. That tells you what you need to know. But taking a look back, I wanted to just take you through some of this pictures that we've gotten from really around the country, especially more of the Midwest and the northern areas. That is where they are feeling blizzard conditions. Take a look at this in Mitchellville. That is a driver on the road and navigating that wind and snow that is blowing almost sideways. Not the case in Atlanta, but we are experiencing some significant wind chills, and that's gotten a lot of people in Atlanta almost alert about the weather. Taking you to Cincinnati, where strong winds continue on. Just take a look at that. You can see it on the water, just rising off the water there, as well as snow blanketing Cincinnati. Just stunning imagery. Hopefully everybody is safe right now, taking a moment to appreciate this, but also knowing the damage that it can have on the city, the damage that it can have on people who are experiencing homelessness, and the efforts that are being taken to meet that. And then I showed this earlier, but I just wanted to take you back to this. This is at University of Arkansas, the Razorback statue. Now, this is almost a famous statue if you are a University of of Arkansas student, you know somebody who is, or you've been on this campus at any point, I'm going to bring that back here. But you can see the statues completely frozen over. That should tell you the temperature outside in Arkansas. Taking a more serious look, though, in the Buffalo area, this was a video that was sent to one of our sister stations, made its way over to us. Buffalo experiencing some zero visibility. I mean, taking a look at the wind matched with the snow really blanketing the area and covering up any distance view that you could possibly have. I think the only thing we can make out are those cars that the viewer is standing right in front of. You can't really see anything past it. And speaking of vehicles are experiencing the real impacts of this. I mean, this was in Brush Creek, a car that appeared to have fallen into the creek. You can see responders trying to pull it out of the water. Hopefully this driver is okay and that it was just a vehicle that had crashed in, that the driver was able to make it out. But you can see just crews working around the clock. It's a good time to remind you that here in Atlanta, with the power outage reports that we've gotten with the rolling blackouts, as well as the downed trees that we've seen across the state, crews are working around the clock. Georgia Power even told us that they were working for the past 12 plus hours responding to power outages alone and making sure that they were able to restore power. I mean, they even said in North Georgia, they're seeing the heaviest impacts of that, getting power to almost 120,000 customers. I believe at this point it's over 120,000 customers. But this is just a video for you that we've gathered. This is Chicago across the country, giving you that picture of the winds, the blizzard conditions, everything that everybody is experiencing up in the Midwest and North. South Illinois drivers driving through zero visibility. I would not be on this roadway personally, but you know, this is a travel season, so right now with a lot of people just trying to make their Christmas plans, making their holiday plans, this is a reality for them, and hopefully they were able to take those measures, you know, sanding their tires, getting cat litter, having a roadside safety kit, making sure that a loved one knows the direction they're headed in, and that they have the information they need to call roadside assistance should anything happen. But just stunning. I mean, taking a look at all of that, it is incredible. We have been with you here since about 12:30 p.m. It is now headed into the 3 o'clock hour. We're going to bring you our latest coverage from our team around Atlanta, around Georgia, that's been out there in the elements on the ground. We're going to bring you that coverage on Atlanta News First, starting at 3 o'clock all the way to the 6:30 hour time. But for now, I just wanted to take this moment and let you know that the best way that you can stay up to date on your local weather, especially in your area, is to grab your phone and download the Atlanta News First app, as well as the First Alert app. Those are personalized apps, especially that First Alert app, that will give you hour-by-hour updates of the weather in your specific zip code. Wherever you're located, it does use location services if you turn those on in your phone to let you know what you can expect and what you should plan for, as well as a look-ahead weather forecast that are 60-second videos from our meteorologists, so that you can have that personalized weather breakdown, really that's navigated and personalized to what you need to know and make plans around. But for now, thank you for joining us here at the Atlanta News First Plus desk. We're going to toss it over to our Atlanta News First team, taking you back out through Atlanta, through Georgia, where our field crews have been all day, as well as checking in with our chief meteorologist, Jen Valdez, and other members of our meteorology team to get a real breakdown of where these weather conditions are going and what tomorrow looks like. You know, we've been talking about tomorrow being more cold than it was today, so we'll get an update from our meteorology team about that as well. If you have any questions, drop them below. We are also monitoring all of your comments on Facebook and YouTube, and we'll be sure to catch that as well. But leaving you with some final tips here for those that might be reconsidering some travel plans, taking you through that. Bring an extra Couple bottles of water, bring some snacks, bring your roadside safety kit, a flashlight, ice scraper, jumper cables, flares, medicines, and then watch out for power outages. That can impact traffic signals as well. So remember, if you are faced with a traffic signal that the lights aren't working, treat it as a four-way stop intersection. Make sure you're looking out for vehicles, bikes, pedestrians, and proceed with caution. And a final tip, if you do find yourself on some ice, straighten the wheel, accelerate slowly, consider adding sand or cat litter to the tires to prevent spinning of those wheels. More of those tips as well. One final one I want to leave you with, charge your phone. We are continuing to see power outages throughout Georgia. I have a power outage map here pulled up in front of me. Not sure if I'm able to show it to you, but we are still seeing a lot of impact in North Georgia, as well as a lot in Atlanta, up to 1,000 people in various spots of Atlanta experiencing power outages, and then Peachtree Corners faced with almost 3,000 people without power. So that could be you at any moment. Make sure that you are prepared and have a plan. Identify your nearest warming shelter, charge your phone, and stay up to date with us. We'll be back with you on Atlanta News First Plus on this live stream at 6:30 p.m.